Are you ready?
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Broadcasting live from the Newsmax studios, this is the Steve Malzberg Show. Be a part of the action by calling 855-777-9660. That's 855-777-9660. Or email Steve at malzbergshow@newsmax.com. Here is Steve Malzberg.
While we want to sustain our relationship with Egypt, our traditional cooperation cannot continue as usual when civilians are being killed in the streets and rights are being rolled back. As a result, this morning we notified the Egyptian government that we are canceling our biannual joint military exercise, which was scheduled for next month. Going forward, I've asked my national security team to assess the implications of the actions taken by the interim government and further steps that we may take as necessary with respect to the U.S.-Egyptian relationship.
Well, hello, everyone, and welcome to the Steve Malzberg Show. Of course, heard everywhere on radio, on the web, on Newsmax TV, Roku, and on apps worldwide. And once again, Egypt dominating the headlines on the Thursday edition of the Steve Malzberg Show. And nobody better to talk to about this than the best-selling author. Most recently, a paperback version of Spring Fever, The Illusion of Islamic Democracy, former federal prosecutor. You read him, contributing editor to National Review, PJ Media. We say hello to Andy McCarthy. Hello, sir.
Steve, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing just fine.
Good, good. You sound fine for a man who just had some serious dental work done, but that's okay.
Oh, because I'm just sitting here playing spades and see what comes up.
Yeah, well, is that a reference to Obama and what he did during the Bin Laden raid?
Oh, did he do that?
Well, he played cards. Yes. Very, very, very. I know you had no idea about that. And I understand they took down the YouTube video once it hit Drudge with Reggie with Mr. Love. The whole thing is a disaster. We'll talk about that. But let's start with Egypt. Let's start with the president's response today. Here's a guy who, in his speech, he canceled the joint military operation in protest over more than 500 dead yesterday, and now today we have almost sort of the reverse. The Egyptian authorities authorizing police to use deadly force to protect themselves and key state institutions from attacks after Morsi supporters have started. Well, they torched 2 local government buildings and they're burning churches and attacking Coptic Christians, which you touched on today at National Review. We'll get to that in a second. But the president, it seems, if you listen to his whole speech, still is almost PR, doing PR for the Muslim Brotherhood.
Yeah, and that's certainly the way it's being taken throughout the world, Steve. He tried to assume a posture of objectivity today, but this is hardly a clean slate. He's been trying to empower Islamic supremacists since the first hours of his administration. He was endlessly frustrating to authentic Democrats. There aren't a lot of them in Egypt, but those who are there were very frustrated by the fact that he put his thumb on the scale on behalf of the Muslim Brotherhood. When Morsi won the election, Hillary Clinton was the one as Secretary of State, Obama's emissary, who pressured the generals at that time to relinquish control of Egypt and turn it over to the Muslim Brotherhood. I don't think in the 11th inning, after the game has already been played and Obama decisively sided with the Muslim Brotherhood, to pretend now that we've been objective all along is not anything that has credibility with anyone. And what really struck me about the president's remarks today, aside from the fact that there seems to be very little acknowledgement that the violence here is two-sided, and that, in fact, you have the legitimate military authorities of Egypt against these Muslim Brotherhood and Islamic supremacists who are hardly just peaceful protesters, despite the way they've been portrayed. As you mentioned, as of this morning, and that's Eastern time in the United States, at least 22 churches had been torched. And this is against the backdrop where during the Morsi government, the Muslim Brotherhood government, persecuting Christians in Egypt was a feature, as it is in any Sharia society, of that government. And they've also committed other acts of violence and used women and children as human shields, and yet the president lapsed into this rhetoric about the cycle of violence. Well, there would be no reason for the military to be violent if the Muslim Brotherhood was not doing its part, and it certainly is.
Yeah, we're talking to Andy McCarthy, and the question, and you and I have discussed this for years, and it's there's no answer. You can't get inside a man's head, but you certainly could have an opinion on it. Why in the face of the violence, the totally failed tenure of Morsi and what he did, and Obama alluded to, he didn't represent everybody, there was some unhappiness with them, brushing over the locking up of political opponents and the rounding up of political opponents, and as you said, the persecution of Coptic Christians, et cetera, which the president didn't mention. Why in the face of all that does the president stick with the Muslim Brotherhood? Why did his people tell us way in advance of Morsi, that the Muslim Brotherhood, they're peaceful, they're good people, they're not a threat, they're wonderful? Why does the president allow the infiltration of the Muslim Brotherhood into branches of the United States? What do you think his motivation is?
Well, I think, Steve, that he's really doubling down on the strategy that he's had all along, and the paper trail and the video trail of his support and empowerment of Islamic supremacists, not just the Brotherhood, but the Brotherhood in particular in Egypt, is so lengthy and extensive. I don't think they feel they can walk away from it. They had this theory that because Islamic supremacists are a sad fact of life in the Middle East, they somehow are also a stabilizing element in the Middle East, and that by empowering them and showing them that America didn't have it in for them, as if anybody actually ever believed the silly war on Islam rhetoric, that somehow that would improve relations between the United States and the peoples of the Middle East, and it would improve our security. And I think on every count, it's been proven to be catastrophic.
Yeah, no, without a doubt it has. Okay, so what happens now? I mean, again, we will not call it a coup. So the aid continues. We've cut the joint exercise, which I don't know if Egypt really cares about that or not. Where do we go from here? If we could presume that the military and the government in charge is going to continue their crackdown. They're going to continue to marginalize, to say the least, the Muslim Brotherhood, and they'll hold elections, and they probably won't let the Muslim Brotherhood be a part of it. So what's next for them, and what's next for us as it relates to them?
Well, as far as us, I think we've left ourselves, or the Obama administration has left us in a position where we have very little influence on the outcome here. We've somehow managed to irritate and turn hostile virtually every faction of that society against us. So now, the military has for a long time been very unhappy with the way that it's been pressured by the United States. The Muslim Brotherhood feels like Obama is semi-abandoning them in their hour of need because he's not doing more to stop the military. And the authentic Democrats in Egypt have long felt that Obama had thrown his lot in with the Muslim Brotherhood. So there's virtually no one that we have any influence with in Egypt. As far as what the outcome is there, I think the best outcome we can hope for is that the military actually does drive the Muslim Brotherhood underground, that it actually wins. Because I know this is unpopular since the Second World War, really, but these conflicts don't end until there's a winner and a loser, and it's only on that foundation that you can actually build something that's permanent and predictable. You throwing the reins around the military at this point, giving the Muslim Brotherhood a standing 8 count and letting them come back into the process, which they are committed to undermining because they're totally committed to a Sharia society, would be ridiculous. So I think the best we can hope for is a very long process of a technocratic Egyptian government operating under the light supervision of the military, a long process where they try to write an inclusive constitution that respects the rights of women and minority rights, and then somewhere down the road, elections, but elections in which the people who get to stand for election have to convincingly renounce violence and agree to the fundamentals of a new system where you have minority rights and equality of women.
You want to laugh? There's breaking news on CNN. There's a new travel warning for Egypt. State Department telling Americans to defer travel. Really?
We'll all have to cancel that trip that I'm sure everybody was about to.
Oh, my goodness. We're talking to Andy McCarthy. The book, which talks about all this, folks, is Spring Fever, The Illusion of Islamic Democracy. All right. I want to talk about I guess you would call it the manifestation of Obama hypocrisy, if I'm trying to come up with something real quick off the top of my head that rhymes with Islamic democracy. And that is...
You mean his lips were moving?
Yes, his lips were moving, and he was talking about gay rights. No one asked a question at the press conference last Friday about gay rights, so he said, a lot of questions have been asked, and he went into it, and he talked about how no one is more troubled than he is about what Russia is doing with their laws, cracking down on gays. And then he added this, cut number 39. Listen to cut 39. I think we have Barack Obama cut 39. Okay.
One of the things I'm really looking forward to is maybe some gay and lesbian athletes bringing home the gold or silver or bronze, which I think would go a long way in rejecting the kind of attitudes that we're seeing there. And if Russia doesn't have gay or lesbian athletes, then it'd probably make their team weaker.
Right. First of all, let's take that last part first. I know you want to talk about how hypocritical this is, but imagine what he just said. If Russia, first of all, I don't know that we have any openly gay or lesbian athletes on our team that's going to Russia. But he said if Russia doesn't have gay or lesbian athletes on their team, it'll make them weaker. So by definition, if you have gay or lesbian athletes, you'll have a stronger team. I mean, the logic, the nerve to say something like that is just crazy.
Yeah, most normal people don't define themselves by their
sexual orientation, right?
It doesn't have anything to do with athletic performance. It's so stupid to be talking about it in the context of athletic performance. It's hard to wrap your brain around it.
Yep.
Even what the Russians did, the Russians obviously adopted an anti-gay propaganda law. And I'm not. It was a reprehensible thing for them to do. But number one, compared to the persecution gays suffer in the Middle East, it doesn't hold a candle to that. And secondly, he wasn't saying that. The Russians weren't saying that they're inferior people or inferior athletes or anything like it. They're trying to promote heterosexual relationships because they're facing a population catastrophe.
Right, yeah, and you're right, and well, you're right. It's certainly about the hypocrisy under Islamic law and the stoning to death in many places of people who are gay, and that goes, that there's total silence. He bows to the king of Saudi Arabia, but of course he's outraged over what Russia's doing. So once again, like you said, he moved his lips and the hypocrisy came out. Andy, always great to talk to you, sir. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Steve. Great to talk to you.
Take care. Andy McCarthy, ladies and gentlemen, former U.S. attorney. Read him at National Review Online, PJ Media, and, of course, his book, Spring Fever, The Illusion of Islamic Democracy. And I know I'm leaving about a half a dozen things out, but he is a great, great man. All right, folks, you want to weigh in on that very quickly on Obama's hypocrisy when it comes to gay rights? Or on the whole situation in Egypt. Should we have canceled the games? Should we cancel our military aid? 855-777-9660, 855-777, as I like to say, 9660. This is, of course, the Steve Malzberg Show on Newsmax TV.
The Steve Malzberg Show.
In 2013, half of your friends, family, and neighbors may lose their jobs, and you may be forced to watch helplessly as you are robbed of 90% of your life savings, all while your home's value is eradicated. Controversial economist Robert Wiedemer believes we will soon stare down a secret crisis that will rival the Great Depression. It was Wiedemer's 2005 book, America's Bubble Economy, that warned of coming meltdowns in our housing and stock markets. Washington did not heed his call, and folks on Main Street lost $50 trillion from the recession. His New York Times best-selling book, Aftershock, predicted our federal debt and dollar would be the next bubbles to burst. And now Robert Wiedemer has released a startling video with shocking evidence the powers that be have tried to ban. But that hasn't stopped 50 million people from getting the truth. Join us at Aftershock2013.com, Aftershock2013.com. In 2013, half of your friends, family, and neighbors may lose their jobs, all while you are robbed of 90% of your life savings, investments, and home's value. Controversial economist Robert Wiedemer, who was the only expert to predict the recession, has released a startling video with shocking evidence that the powers that be have tried to ban. But that hasn't stopped 50 million people from getting the truth. Watch it at AftershockVideo.com, AftershockVideo.com. In 2013, half of your friends, family, and neighbors may lose their jobs, all while you are robbed of 90% of your life savings, investments, and home's value. Controversial economist Robert Wiedemer, who was the only expert to predict the recession, has released a startling video with shocking evidence that the powers that be have tried to ban. But that hasn't stopped 50 million people from getting the truth. Watch it at Aftershock911.com, Aftershock911.com.
Judging from everything you hear, you think all cholesterol is bad, but that's not really true. You need a certain amount of cholesterol to maintain good health. The problem is that too much cholesterol in your blood contributes to a plaque, a fatty substance that narrows the coronary arteries that feed blood flow to your heart. Picture your coronary arteries as a 4-lane highway. If one lane becomes blocked, traffic still flows well. 2 lanes, no major problem. But if a 3rd lane becomes blocked, that spells trouble. It's the same way with your coronary arteries. And when plaque slows their blood flow to your heart, this can even cause a heart attack. The good news is that when it comes to cholesterol, lifestyle changes can pay off big time. Even a small reduction in plaque can be like opening up another highway lane. Suddenly, blood flow that was stalled can go forward again. Changing your lifestyle does not have to be hard. And in fact, here are 3 ways to help you start lowering your cholesterol. Snack on nuts. Nuts are probably one of the easiest and tastiest ways to lower cholesterol. Walnuts and almonds are among the best. Bulk up your diet with fiber. Choose whole fruits instead of a fruit juice, brown rice instead of white, and if you're eating a baked potato, be sure to leave the skin on. Choose fish. Fish contains cholesterol-fighting omega-3 fatty acids. I'm Dr. Chauncey Crandall, and thanks for watching this Heart Health Minute. Remember, it's never too late to prevent or reverse heart disease. Right now, I invite you to discover your own risk for heart disease or even a heart attack by taking my quick, free online quiz at www.simplehearttest.com.
Where can you find the Steve Malzberg Show? Everywhere. From your smartphone to satellite radio to Newsmax Live TV to Roku, we have you covered. Here is Steve Malzberg.
Welcome back. Marion Bartoli, who won Wimbledon back in won Wimbledon this year. The 2013 champ at Wimbledon, Marion Bartoli, she stepping down. Citing pain and injury. I don't know how old Bartoli could be. 28. I think it's 28 if I'm reading the closed captioning on the TV correctly. Anyway, wow. Okay, not a household name, but nonetheless, the most recent Wimbledon champion retiring at that age because of pain and injury. Okay. The other night on NBC Nightly News, Kate Snow was the anchorette, and or anchor. Is anchorette sexist? I am so sorry. Hey, Media Matters, I didn't know. You know, I'm from the generation of humorettes. You know, good humor man with the ice cream, the vanilla ice cream in the middle with the orange around it. So I said anchorette. Excuse me. All right. Anyway, I want you to listen to this. How many times have I played for you? If you like your doctor, you can keep your doctor. if you like your insurance, you can keep your insurance. How many times have I played Obama saying that, and how many times did Obama say it? Over and over, and even fairly recently when he knows and has known all along that's not true. So listen to Kate Snow here. Listen to this report. Cut 27.
Healthy choices, big challenges ahead for when the new health care law takes effect. Will you have to change your doctor? When the Affordable Health Care Act goes into effect on October 1st, a lot of Americans around retirement age will have some challenging choices to make, like should they switch to a new kind of health care coverage? And if they do, will that mean changing doctors?
You want to look and see whether your physician, whether the specialists that you use are in the networks that are offered by those plans. So a plan that might look cheaper on the exchange but doesn't include your network could end up costing you more.
Costing you more, and of course, losing you your doctor. Folks, I don't need to tell you anything else. I just wanted you to hear it. You know where we're headed with healthcare. You know how I feel about where we're headed with healthcare, because that's exactly where we're headed with healthcare. A little bit later, I'm going to do a little Malzberg moment, if you will. There's a million Muslim march planned for Washington, D.C., and it's an American Political Action Committee. And I'll tell you what this proposed million Muslim march. Say that one time fast. Million Muslim march. I'll tell you what they want and when they're going to have it. And you may be outraged like I am. But coming up, Charlie Hurt will join us, the great Charles Hurt, columnist at the Washington Times. And then right after Charles Hurt, in this next half hour, Rick Santorum in an exclusive interview right here. And we'll ask him about what's going on his presidential campaign, and also about Egypt and Obamacare and the Republicans, and are they doing the right thing? Would he change anything? And what about Rand Paul and all those rest of the people? And Ron Paul joins us later on the Steve Malzberg Show on Newsmax TV.
The Steve Malzberg Show.
Don't complain about your cable bill going up and up and up. Do something about it. Grab a pencil and jot down this special number, 1-855-625-MY-TV. The more cable TV rates go up, the better digital satellite TV looks. So cancel the cable and get more of your favorite channels in 100% digital quality for less money. Call 1-855-625-MY-TV. Right now to sign up for packages starting as low as $19.99, and there's no equipment to buy. You get free HD TV upgrade, a free DVR upgrade, and free professional installation. You control what you watch when you watch it. Record your favorite shows. Pause and rewind live TV. Even skip the commercials. Watch local channels too. At just $19.99, what are you waiting for? Pull out your major credit or debit card. Call 1-855-625-MY-TV. 1-855-625-MY-TV. Cancel the cable. Cut costs and get more. 1-855-625-MY-TV. 1-855-625-MY-TV.
Attention hip implant patients. Are you in constant pain? Have you received a letter from your doctor about your implant? Have you had or need a revision surgery? Do you have high levels of metal, chromium, or cobalt in your blood? Over 90,000 hip implant devices have been recalled due to defects and failures resulting in revision or replacement surgery. If you have a recalled hip implant, you may be entitled to substantial financial compensation. Call 800-460-1530 to see if your implant is affected by the recalls. If you or a loved one has a defective or recalled hip implant, you may be entitled to substantial financial compensation. Call 800-460-1530. That's 800-460-1530. Protect your legal rights today. Call 800-460-1530.
This is an advertisement, not valid in all states. Paid non-attorney spokesperson. iLawsuit.com is an advertising group that represents lawyers advertising their services and is a free matching service for consumers. It is not a law firm or lawyer referral service.
Obamacare. President Obama's massive health care law is taking effect this year. With over 15,000 pages of regulations, few even know what it means. Now, the Obamacare Survival Guide by Nick Tate gives you the shocking facts about this law. It's a step-by-step guide on how you can protect yourself. Already the New York Times bestseller, every American needs to get the Obamacare Survival Guide and find out about the new taxes, hidden fees, fines, Medicare changes, business rules, and why doctor shortages are likely. Donald Trump says the Obamacare Survival Guide is a must-read for anyone worried about getting good health care for themselves or their employees. So get the Obamacare Survival Guide. It's at bookstores, or get our special offer at Obamacare911.com and you'll save $15. Go now to Obamacare911.com. Obamacare911.com.
Do you have a motorized wheelchair or scooter that needs repairs and you don't know where to turn? Then call the experts at Precision Repair Network. They are the specialists in repairing all makes and models of motorized wheelchairs and scooters. You can call 24/7 and they will come to you anywhere in the United States. They'll give you a loaner to use until they return yours in perfect condition. And your repairs may be covered by your Medicare or your private insurance, so there is little or no out-of-pocket cost to you. If your wheelchair or scooter needs repairs, call this special hotline now and learn how you can get door-to-door service on your repairs at little or no cost to you. Precision Repair Network. They'll get you moving again. Operators are ready to take your call right now. 800-978-4813. 800-978-4813. 800-978-4813. That's 800-978-4813.
This is not your typical Screamfest talk show.
No.
This is the next generation of talk radio. Here is Steve Malzberg.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Steve Malzberg Show. And right now, I'm doing what any good host would do, sending out a text. Let's see, there you go. And trying to track down somebody. I'm telling you, it's live radio and live television. So if I'm sitting here on my BlackBerry trying to contact somebody, you just have to make an allowance for that. Let's see. Here we are. All right, I'm gonna have to look, folks. I'm gonna have to look through my email here. We're trying to contact Charlie Hurd, of course, the great columnist for the Washington Times, formerly the Washington bureau chief for the New York Post. Do you have the right number? I'm assuming you guys do. So let me just respond to him. All right. There you go. All right. Well, hopefully we got him. All right. See, it worked. I didn't even send it yet, and it worked. Hello, Charles Hurt. Hey, Charles, how are you, sir?
Hi, how are you?
Good, good. I know you got a crazy busy day, and I appreciate you making time for us.
I'm sorry about that. I try to never, ever do that.
No, what you cut, nobody even knows. So we had it scheduled for another time. No big deal. You're here. And unfortunately, not unfortunately, but we could only go about 7 minutes. We got Rick Santorum following you. But let me get down to a few things here. And one of the things I wanted to play for you is Reggie Love.
Yes.
This revelation, this man is like the right-hand man, was bodyguard / I don't know what you would call him to the president until very recently, for years and years. Here's cut 23 as he recounts what happened when they were getting Osama bin Laden.
I think it was a very long day. I spent the entire day at the White House, and probably typically like the weekends he'll work like a half day. And this Sunday, we worked we were there until almost, I think he went on TV at midnight, and almost midnight. And sat around in the private dining room, kind of like, most people were like down in the Situation Room, but he was like, I'm not going to be down here. I can't watch this entire thing. So he, myself, Pete Souza, the White House photographer, and Marvin, we must have played 15 games of spades.
15 games of spades. Now, even when CNN did this story, they said he was in the Situation Room playing cards. He wasn't in the Situation Room. He must have come there, posed for that picture with that jacket on, which always looked odd, and now we know why.
Yeah, it was the most amazing thing. My heart almost stopped when I first saw that story yesterday. But because part of what's so interesting about this is that Reggie Love is one of these guys. He's not He's not a politically savvy kind of guy. He is, in parlance, White House parlance, his body man, meaning he's about roughly his Obama's size, so that he can walk up to the up to the podium and measure where the teleprompters should be, so they're right at his eye level. He's a guy that can carry his grip for him. He's the guy that hands him a pen when he needs to sign to sign an autograph or something like that. He's his all-around buddy that's with him all the time, and it's got to be somebody that the president is very relaxed with, and that's who Reggie Love was. And so this is, Reggie was somebody who spent more time with the president in the past, up until when he left, than absolutely anybody anywhere in the White House. Probably spends more time with him than the president's wife. Almost certainly does. And so they have a very relaxed relationship. And but what's important here is that Reggie Love is also not a media person. He's not somebody who is sort of is supposed to be speaking for the president. And there's a reason for that, and that is that he's apt to be one of these guys who's a little bit more honest than, say, a professional spinner like the White House press secretary.
Right.
So when he sits down for this interview, I mean, I almost feel sorry for him because he's a really good.
Right. He was just blatantly honest.
He was just blatantly honest, and he had no idea how horrific this sounds, especially to the parents of the men and women we have fighting and dying for freedom around the world. To sit there and tell the world that the president couldn't bother himself to sit down there and watch as we sent all those boys over there to risk their lives in order to capture or kill Osama bin Laden. This guy couldn't even bother himself to go down and watch it. He went and played 15 games of spades.
Yeah, it kind of doesn't do much for the story that has developed that Obama, got Osama bin Laden, does it?
Yeah, exactly. and who knows? It's kind of interesting because I haven't seen a lot of the mainstream media pick up the story and run with it like you'd think they would.
No. Like I said, CNN even said he was in the Situation Room, and to make the time pass, he was playing cards. So they even misrepresented it.
Yeah, but I did notice that. So the story gets posted on Drudge yesterday, and within moments. Or not moments, I guess it was more like at least an hour.
They took it down off YouTube, right?
That's right. Because I imagine it was one of those, again, Reggie Love, if he has anything in this world, he's a good guy. Because he's easy to be around, And, he saw that. He realized the magnitude of what he said, and how bad it was, and how honest it was. And, he made some calls and said, hey, guys, this is DEFCON 6, we're in trouble.
Yeah,
we need to get rid of that.
I screwed up. All right, Charlie, one more for you here. And that is, this is, what do you make of the outrageous ruckus? The NAACP wants the Justice Department and the Secret Service to investigate the Obama clown at the rodeo. He lost his job. The radio announcer there lost his job. They have to undergo sensitivity training before they're allowed back in the state fair. And this is, they once put a George H.W. Bush mask at that rodeo on a dummy and let the bull attack the dummy. I mean, this is insanity.
Yeah, and this has developed into what I think is the most marvelous story of the entire summer, because it's a perfect encapsulation of exactly where we are, and no one shows that better than the NAACP. The idea that they are actually getting involved in something like this, I think, reveals that they have long outlived their usefulness and their any sense of not that we didn't already sort of kind of feel that anyway, but I mean, good grief. And it also reveals, I think, that how many of these people are so out of touch. They've never been to a county fair rodeo. They've never been to a rodeo, and I can't think of anything more sort of normal and American and enjoyable than going to a rodeo. And of course, there's always these sorts of gags going on, and I always like to make it a little bit outrageous, and there's always a little politics injected into it, and also, obviously they'll make fun of any party.
Charlie, you hit the nail on the head. Normal and American. And under this administration, which yesterday called it not one of our better days as a country, under this administration, anything normal that we grew up and we lived through as normal and American doesn't fly with this administration and this president, and that's the problem. Charlie, thank you for making the time. Let's do this more regularly. We'll set a time or a date that's good for both of us, and we'll make it a regular, because I love talking to you.
I would love that, Steve.
All right. You take care, my friend.
Thanks, Bob.
All right. Charles Hurt, ladies and gentlemen, a Washington Times columnist and just a great guy, and a former bureau chief in D.C. for the New York Post. When we come back, we hope to be joined by Senator Rick Santorum, former presidential candidate, current presidential candidate, and we'll hear what he has to say on many of these issues right here on the Steve Malzberg Show on Newsmax TV.
The Steve Malzberg Show.
Hey guys, do you know your testosterone level? You should. Each year, declining testosterone robs more of your energy, drive, motivation, and even your ability to perform in bed. Take control of your testosterone today. Write this number down, because Progene, the leader in dual-action testosterone supplements, is now giving you a free supply if you call today at 800-592-4834. If you'd like to feel closer to 20 than 40 and get back that energy, drive, and confidence, call now to try Progene risk-free. Don't believe us? We'll even prove it works. Ask about our at-home testosterone test kits and see for yourself what Progene can do for you. Be one of the next 100 callers. We'll triple your order and send you a full 1-month supply of Progene for free. A $70 value for only the cost of shipping and handling. Call 800-592-4834 for details. Know your level and kick your drive back into gear with Progene. Call 800-592-4834. That's 800-592-4834. Again, 800-592-4834.
Drug, alcohol, and gambling addiction can be devastating for you and your loved ones. Don't let the disease of addiction ruin everything you've worked so hard for. The Treatment Helpline has helped thousands of people just like you take control of their addictions and live healthier, cleaner, and happier lives. You are not alone. Now there's hope. The Treatment Helpline has helped people just like you overcome their addiction. If you or a loved one is suffering from a drug, alcohol, or gambling addiction, let us help you today. Call 1-800-813-9821. Our seasoned addiction treatment professionals can show you how to use your private health insurance to help cover the costs of this life-changing program. Call now and get a free confidential consultation. 1-800-813-9821. That's 1-800-813-9821. Help is only a phone call away. Call 1-800-813-9821. That's 1-800-813-9821.
Hi, this is Mike Reagan. Folks ask me, what would Ronald Reagan do if he were with us today? I believe the first thing he'd do is stop Obamacare. Already it's in effect with higher taxes, hidden fees, skyrocketing insurance rates, big Medicare cuts, and some insurance plans are hit with a 40% tax. Protect yourself by getting the Obamacare Survival Guide. It's already a #1 New York Times bestseller. Newsmax says it's the best guide to the new law, giving you the strategies, tips, and loopholes you need to know. If you're insured on Medicare, a business owner, a medical professional, just about anyone, you need this book. Get the #1 bestseller, The Obamacare Survival Guide, at bookstores everywhere. Or get our special $4.95 offer and save $15 off the cover price by going now to Obamacare911.com. Obamacare911.com. That's Obamacare911.com.
Meet Jim. Like many of us, Jim enjoys a busy life. Between work, family, and friends, his days zip along. And Jim has the energy to tackle almost anything. But lately, Jim's get up and go has literally taken on a new meaning. Jim's always put focus on a full night's sleep, but it seems like these days, he's up and down to go to the bathroom so many times he can barely wake up in the morning. His prostate concerns have him sad, tired, and worried. Activities that were once enjoyable now seem like a chore for Jim. His golf game is at the mercy of his bathroom schedule. Family outings are planned around it too. Jim even has difficulty going to the bathroom. He's tried so many prostate remedies he can't keep them straight, and nothing ever seems to help. Then Jim found out about Prostate Revive, the all-natural dietary supplement specifically formulated for men, targeted towards improving and sustaining normal prostate function. Prostate Revive includes 15 super ingredients never combined before, including saw palmetto extract, beta-cytosterol, pomegranate fruit extract, selenium, and other high-quality nutrients. These targeted and all-natural ingredients promote healthy urinary flow and optimal prostate health. And the best part is, Prostate Revive was developed by a renowned medical doctor. Dr. David Brownstein personally formulated Prostate Revive with one goal in mind: to promote a healthy prostate gland. Thanks to Prostate Revive, Jim's got his life back. He gets a full night's sleep every night, and his friends and his wife can't believe he's the same guy. He has his old energy back, and no one has to wait for him. He doesn't even think about his prostate concerns anymore. Visit MedicSelect.com to take back your nights and improve your quality of life with Prostate Revive.
The Steve Malzberg Show is just a bit different from the other radio shows. We have TV cameras. Watch the show at Newsmax.com or listen on your favorite radio station. Here's Steve Malzberg.
All right, folks, welcome back to the Steve Malzberg Show. And, of course, we're heard everywhere on the radio, on the web, on Newsmax TV, Roku, and apps all over the world. Okay, here's something that's Rick Santorum will hopefully join us a little bit later on in the show. He's running a little late, but I want to talk about this. A Muslim advocacy PAC is planning what they call a Million Muslim March. Sound a little familiar? Well, we'll get to that. This would be in Washington, D.C. The American Political Action Committee, or AMPAC, not AFLAC, and not Amtrak, but AMPAC. They're demanding, quote, that laws be enacted protecting our First Amendment. We are asking President Obama to fulfill his promise from his first campaign for presidency of a transparent government. Lastly, we are asking for the release of the 9/11 Commission report to the American people, end quote. AMPAC's Chief of Operations, Isa Hodge, writes that Muslims and non-Muslims alike were traumatized by 9/11, but we as Muslims continue 12 years later to be victimized by being made the villains. Yet our government either sits idly by and does nothing to protect our freedoms, or it exacerbates the problem with its constant war on terrorism in Islamic countries. This is what they're saying. Now, that would be bad enough. Okay, as if implying that Islamic terror and radical Islam and Muslim terrorists weren't involved or responsible or to blame for 9/11. But when do you think that this Million Muslim March is slated for in Washington, D.C.? I'll give you 3 seconds. 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi, 3 Mississippi. Okay. 9/11. 9/11. Let me tell you what this does. I don't believe all Muslims are bad or good. I don't believe any group is all bad or good. But what this does in the eyes of America, in the eyes of the Americans that will be watching this, and by the way, if they get 100,000 people, I'd be shocked. Let alone, I'm never going to get 1 million. But what it does is it alienates the Muslim community. It makes them look insensitive. It makes them look bad. If this gets any news coverage at all. If there's any significant amount of people there at all. And to get news coverage, an event like this won't even need a significant amount of people. You could have 10 people, and they'll call it a Million Muslim March, and the camera will pan the same 10 people and make it look big. My point is, you want to have a march? You think Muslims are being attacked in this country? You think Muslims don't have their civil rights in this country? You think Muslims are being villainized and victimized in this country? Then hold a march. Hold it any of the 365 days of the year except don't hold it on 9/11. That's not an accident. This group knows exactly what it's doing by holding this march on 9/11. They know exactly what they're doing. Don't think they don't. It's inflammatory. It's in your face. And that's, in my opinion, why it's being done. Now, a little off the beaten path here. Louis Farrakhan. Louis Farrakhan would always have his Million Man March, the original Million Man March, if I'm not mistaken. It was right around I think it might have been on the Jewish High Holy Days. Okay? And he said that the theme and the goal was, introspection and making yourself better and asking for forgiveness. All these kinds of things that kind of went along with kind of what some of the High Holy Days spirit is all about. I said at that time when he held that march, and by the way, he never got near 1 million men, that this was being done at the time, in the time frame, in order to stick it to Jews. I really felt that. Well, whether or not that was the case, that was my opinion. And whether or not it's the case, it is my opinion that to have this march on 9/11 is no accident, and it's insensitive. It's almost as insensitive as wanting to build that mosque at Ground Zero. Remember the Ground Zero mosque proposal? Thank goodness nothing has come of that yet. I don't know that it's a dead project, and I know even though Mayor Bloomberg, the Republican mayor of New York City, was all for that mosque, I'm sure once, if there's a Democratic mayor elected for next year, it'll make it easier. But I don't know where that project is. But remember, almost the universal support from the politicians for that mosque to be built right down the street from where the planes crashed into the buildings. Again, that site was chosen for that mosque to be in your face, to rile up people, to make a point, to make a political statement. That's no accident. You have a whole city of New York to build a mosque. And you want to build it? You want to put the dome of that mosque right there? I got to tell you, no accident. No accident. So this thing here, and by the way, they call, listen to what the head here, AMPAC's chief of operations, writes that Muslims and non-Muslims were traumatized by 9/11, as I told you, but we as Muslims continue 12 years later to be victimized by being made the villains. Yet our government either sits by and does nothing. I told you all that. Okay. These lies told to the American population has made it impossible for us to do true dawah, referring to the practice of proselytizing or preaching Islam. It is time for us as Muslims in America to stop being defensive, start being proactive by using our right to vote and our freedom of assembly to let our voices be heard by our country and the world. Stand with us. Help fight the injustices being committed against us. What injustices in this country are being committed against Muslims? By our government? Our government, this administration, unfortunately, has handcuffed our law enforcement, our FBI, because of pressure from Muslim groups like, in my opinion, CARE and others who claim to be civil rights groups for Muslims. The FBI can't mention the word terrorism. They couldn't ask the older Boston Marathon bomber questions. They couldn't go into his mosque. As a matter of fact, in this country, Muslims get special treatment in many respects. And they have the nerve to say that the American government is persecuting Muslims in this country? Really, I would love to see examples. But again, as far as this million-man march goes, how dare they? How dare the organizers of this schedule a march like this on 9/11? And I guess the implication is that Islam and Muslims had nothing to do with this attack, and they want the American government to tell the truth. So the implication is that they're truthers. Remember the truthers? Dick Cheney personally spent about a month and a half with his heart condition climbing the cobwebs of the two towers and planting bombs in there so they could detonate it and make it look like a plane took them down. Remember that? Yeah, how could the steel melt? I wasn't hot enough. It's this, it's that. It had to be internal explosions. Yeah, the truthers. Not to be confused with the birthers, the truthers. So maybe these people are truthers in addition to everything else. So, big mistake, a lot of nerve, not going to win any friends that way, in my opinion. Do you agree? I'd love to know. Anyway, so for what it's worth, I had my 2 cents in there. My 2 cents. Let's see if I could give you a... no, I have nothing. Okay. Anybody watch the show, that 70s show? Ashton Kutcher and all that. Okay, which one was Lisa Robin Kelly? She was blonde. Was she the sister? Was she the... okay, she was the blonde sister who was, a screw-up at college and all. She died. According to her agent, Craig Wyckoff, she was 43, according to her biography. She had voluntarily checked herself into a treatment facility earlier this week where she was battling addiction problems that have plagued her for the past few years. Her agent said, I spoke to her Monday. She was hopeful and confident, looking forward to putting this part of her life behind her. Wednesday night, she lost the battle. Cause of death has not been issued, and no death certificate has been issued either. Yeah, that's a shame. That really is a shame. All right, folks. Coming up, we hope to bring you certainly Rick Santorum. We also are going to have, at the top of the next hour, we'll be joined by Dr. Ron Paul. Not Rand Paul, but former Congressman Ron Paul. I've had my differences with him in the past. We'll discuss various issues. We'll also ask him what he thinks of his son. I'm sure he's very proud of his son, as any father would be. Kendall Coffey will be with us, spinning the law. We're eventually going to talk to Susan Ferrechio of the Washington Examiner, chief congressional correspondent. And we have a brand new visitor to the show. She is an Iranian expert. We're going to ask her what role Iran is playing or might play in this whole Egyptian situation and what threat they pose in that area and throughout northern Africa. So don't go away. We got plenty ahead. Right here, and if you're always welcome to call 855-777-9660, 855-777-9660. Steve Malzberg on the Steve Malzberg Show on Newsmax TV.
The Steve Malzberg Show.
Hi, this is Mike Reagan. You need to watch out because thousands of new Obamacare rules are currently being implemented, and few know what the law says or does. Listen to what Senator Max Baucus, one of the authors of the Obamacare law, recently said.
I tell you, I just see a huge train wreck coming down, and I don't see any results yet. I just see a huge train wreck.
He's right. So protect yourself from this train wreck. Get the #1 bestseller, the Obamacare Survival Guide. Newsmax says it's the best guide to the new law. Join more than 500,000 Americans who have their copy. Get the Obamacare Survival Guide at bookstores everywhere, or get our special $4.95 offer and save $15 off the cover price by going now to Obamacare911.com. That's Obamacare911.com. That's Obamacare911.com.
150 million people suffer from headaches. All you want is for the pounding in your head to stop. Migralex stops the pounding. Migralex was developed by a neurologist and founder of the New York Headache Center.
I'm neurologist Dr. Alex Malzberg. After studying and researching the human brain for 25 years, I've developed Migralex, which eliminates pounding headaches. It works for my patients, and I'm so convinced it will work for you. I don't just guarantee it, I put my name on it.
Dr. Malzberg's Migralex gets rid of headaches fast without harsh caffeine, sodium, or preservatives.
Migralex works unbelievably fast. And it's gentle on my stomach.
Find out how to get your free bottle of Migralex. Call 800-532-2967. Plus, if you're one of the first 100 callers, you'll also receive the Migralex Quick Tips to Headache Relief absolutely free. That's 800-532-2967. Or go to migralexrelief.com. MIGRALEX relief.com. Or call 800-532-2967.
Hello and welcome to your Newsmax Now update. I'm John Bachman. The death toll in Egypt rises where security forces continue to clash with supporters of ousted President Mohamed Morsi. The violence now being called the worst nationwide bloodshed in decades. Today, soldiers were tearing down and cleaning up the remains of camps that hosted those pro-Morsi groups up until yesterday. Some reports now say as many as 500 people were killed in those violent clashes with state security forces. The worst of the fighting erupted on Wednesday after police moved into those camps set up by supporters of Morsi. The Muslim Brotherhood said that it would bring down this quote-unquote military coup, but they also stressed it remains committed to a peaceful struggle despite heavy loss of life when government forces broke up those protest camps. And the question here at home, what does all of this bloodshed mean for the U.S., its relationship with Egypt, as well as the rest of the Arab world? Well, up until now, the United States had urged the Egyptian military to avoid using violence. That was ignored. The Egyptian military also abandoned political talks last week with the opposition, which only increased White House anxiety that Egypt could be headed towards civil war. What's at stake? Egyptian control of the Suez Canal and the Camp David peace accords with Israel. Republican Senators John McCain and Lindsey Graham, recently back from Egypt as emissaries of the White House, have criticized the Obama administration for refusing to call the military-led ouster of Morsi a coup. Experts say the turmoil in Egypt illustrates the limits of U.S. power. And with the president on vacation at Martha's Vineyard, it was up to Secretary of State John Kerry to plead for political compromise.
Egyptians inside and outside of the government need to take a step back. They need to calm the situation and avoid further loss of life. Violence is simply not a solution in Egypt or anywhere else.
Meanwhile, Pope Francis today makes an appeal to end the violence in Egypt after holding a public mass in the hilltop town of Castel Gandolfo, Italy. The Pope asked the faithful to join him in praying for, quote, peace, dialogue, and reconciliation in that beloved land, referring to Egypt. Large crowds had gathered in the town square for what's considered a rare visit by Pope Francis because he's breaking Vatican tradition by spending the summer in Rome rather than at the lavish Castel Gandolfo Palace. And the United Nations Chemical Weapons Team is expected to arrive soon in Syria. The Syrian government has accepted plans for the UN to investigate several sites where chemical weapons were allegedly used earlier this year. The UN team is expected to remain in Syria for up to 2 weeks. And coming up next on your Newsmax Now update, hurricane season heats up with 2 potential storms on the horizon. Plus, a Newsmax exclusive with former Secretary of Defense Donald Rumsfeld on the deteriorating situation in Egypt.
Obamacare. More than $1 trillion in new costs. Hidden taxes, fees, big Medicare cuts, doctor shortages. How can we survive?
To know Obamacare is to survive Obamacare. The Obamacare Survival Guide tells you everything you need to know to protect yourself, your family, your business. The Obamacare Survival Guide at bookstores everywhere. Special internet-only offer right now at Obamacare911.com.
What is LigNet? LigNet is knowledge. LigNet is power. LigNet is global. Top-level officials, U.S. intelligence officers, national security advisors, foreign operatives, all reporting directly to you. What is LigNet? LigNet is confidential. LigNet is sensitive. LigNet is security. What is LigNet? They're the ones taking the world's pulse. If you're not in the know, you're not on lignet.com. You've been briefed.
3 a.m. and you're up again for the 3rd time. It's not just affecting your sleep, it's interrupting your daily life. Frequent trips to the bathroom due to an aging prostate is a common concern, but you can now do something about it with Prostate Revive. Doctor-formulated Prostate Revive is an all-natural dietary supplement packed with 15 powerful ingredients, focused on improving prostate health by targeting the 2 main sources of prostate concerns, rogue testosterone and inflammation. And now, in this limited-time radio offer, you can try Prostate Revive absolutely free. That's a free bottle, a 30-day supply of Prostate Revive, risk-free. Plus, if you call right now, you'll also receive our free report, A Doctor's Guide to a Healthy Prostate. Call now for details on getting your free bottle, plus our doctor's report. Call 1-800-659-REVIVE. That's 1-800-659-REVIVE. Don't be a victim of an aging prostate. Start getting the sleep you need and get your life back with Prostate Revive. Claim your risk-free bottle now at 1-800-659-REVIVE.
And welcome back. The Atlantic Ocean and the Gulf of Mexico are getting interesting just in time for the peak of hurricane season. Meteorologists say there are 2 storm systems worth watching right now. A tropical depression off the coast of Africa, which is expected to become Tropical Storm Erin any time now. There's also a disturbance off the Yucatan Peninsula, which also has a high probability of development. And today, the Obama administration canceled plans to conduct a joint military exercise with Egypt following the deadly violence there. But during a Newsmax exclusive, former Secretary of State Donald Rumsfeld tells us the calls from people to further sever ties with Egypt, like cutting U.S. aid to the country, will only make things worse.
It would be a very serious mistake. We are dealing with countries that have different cultures, different languages, different neighbors, different circumstances, and they're not going to behave like we behave. We've got to recognize that.
And this has been your Newsmax Now update for August 15th. I'm John Bachman. Now here's the Steve Malzberg Show in New York.
Are you ready?
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Broadcasting live from the Newsmax studios, this is the Steve Malzberg Show. Be a part of the action by calling 855-777-9660. That's 855-777-9660. Or email Steve at malzbergshow@newsmax.com. Here is Steve Malzberg.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. Hour number 2 of the Steve Malzberg Show. Of course, heard everywhere on the radio, on the web, on Newsmax TV, Roku, and on apps all over the world. And joining us right now is former Republican presidential candidate and former Republican congressman from the great state of Texas, now the host of his own TV channel, Congressman Ron Paul. Hey, Congressman, how are you, sir?
Doing well, Steve. Thank you.
Well, it's good to talk to you. I have to say right off the bat, or I'd be a hypocrite. You and I don't agree on every issue. But having said that, tell me, I guess you started this up on Monday, the TV station, correct?
Yep, that was the first one. So this is our first week, and so far so good, even though it's the technology is a little complicated for me by the transmissions and having 2 studios and interviewing people from overseas, but that's something you probably have had a lot of experience with. So, but I'm learning along the way, but the shows so far I think have gone quite well.
Well, good for you. Now, interesting, I think one of your first guests, if not the first guest, was Glenn Greenwald, one of the journalists who, broke the Snowden story and gave Snowden the platform. You called him one of the most important journalists in the world today. Do you view what he did and what Snowden did as heroic, as good?
Well, you can be real important without making a value judgment, but so I think he's very important for everybody, whether they agree or not. But I happen to agree that they're doing us all a service, because I think that what has happened is that when government gets too big and too powerful, they want secrecy. And the thing that they fear most is transparency. They talk about transparency, but that's what they fear the most. So when you have people come forth and tell us about what's really going on and telling us the truth about our own government, there's a lot of resentment from that. And I remember as far back as, in the 60s and early 70s when Daniel Ellsberg did this and said, you know what, Vietnam was all fought based on a lie. And so much of what we do overseas is based on lies, so they resent this. So I think the truth is what we should be looking for, whether we agree with the policy or not. We shouldn't be deceiving the people and getting people to endorse certain policies that aren't good for us.
I'm with you on that principle. However, do you agree that Snowden went about this the wrong way? I mean, going to Hong Kong, basically going to China, where there are no freedoms, really. I mean, the Chinese government still controls it, and taking that avenue instead of trying to go to Congress, trying to call his congressman or go to someone in the government or seek whistleblower protection or something, but going to, and telling our enemies everything, all this at once while being overseas and then seeking refuge in Russia. I mean, is that the way he should have gone about this?
Yeah, I think under the circumstances, he had no choice. So he releases information to the American people. They say, well, you shouldn't do this. You're releasing information to our enemies. Well, we're not the enemy. We're people who have to, pay the bills, and people die for these things that go on. So I think it's a sad story that American citizens, have to do it this way. But he wouldn't have gotten a fair trial here. There's no way. They've been going to Congress. I've been there. I know these people. They're dedicated to covering up. Every time I've ever seen, an investigation and a commission, it's usually to protect the government. It's never to get to the truth, whether it's Ruby Ridge or the Davidian compound. It's always to cover up the the politicians and the bureaucrats and the federal officials, they never get punished for this. It's always the innocent people that do. So I don't think he had any choice. Everybody in Washington have their minds made up, and it's bipartisan. You saw the one vote dealing with the NSA, trying to curtail some of the powers of the NSA. The leadership of both parties wanted to defend the president, say keep secret, spy on everybody, no search warrants, ignore the Fourth Amendment. And yet the average people, more from the mainstream Republicans and Democrats, almost, got that passed to place some restraints, on the NSA. So no, I from my experience and from what I see there, it would have been practically suicidal to depend on our court system, because I don't think he could have gotten a fair trial.
We're talking to Congressman Ron Paul here on the Steve Malzberg Show, former congressman, of course, and now host of his own TV network. We'll tell you how you could find out more about that in a second. But Ron, the Congressman, let me ask you, with what's going on in Egypt, do you believe that this administration holds some of the responsibility for where we are now in Egypt?
A ton of it. You couldn't say everything because there are civil strifes and people have disagreements that have been going on, but we stir the pot, and we've been stirring the pot over there for a long time. Just think of how many years we propped up Mubarak, a military dictatorship, and gave him all those weapons, and he was our guy as long as he did what we told him. But then when he loses popularity, then we support the rebels, and lo and behold, the rebels turned out to be the Brotherhood, and they got in power. And then we said, well, you got to be good Democrats. You have to have an election. So they have an election. They elect Morsi, and we don't like him because he's too authoritarian. So then we organize and support the coup. So we go back and forth. We're all over the place. And now our president today tells us that we should be staying out of this fight. Yeah, about 50 years ago, that's when we should have stayed. We should follow Eisenhower in 1956. They were invited us over there to British and the French wanted us to be involved in the Suez Canal deal, and he said, no way, I don't want to get involved there. And we should have never gotten involved. I think it's wrong. But that doesn't mean there wouldn't be a problem there, but it would be a civil problem, internal, and we're not supposed to be involved in the internal affairs of these nations. So, yes, we bear a lot of responsibility. We have a couple choices we give them. If you be our favorite dictatorship, a dictator, we'll give you a lot of money and we'll support you. But if you don't support us, we're going to bomb you and kill you.
But Mubarak really didn't change any of his policies. It was just that Obama, after treating Mubarak like every other president treated him, just decided based on a bunch of people in Tahrir Square that it was time for a change.
Sure, and that should have been their privilege. But this is generally what happens when we prop up somebody. It smolders. That's what happened in Iran. We propped up the Shah since That's where Eisenhower went wrong, because he helped throw out Mossadegh. So we propped up the Shah, and he was a brutal dictator, and that incites the rebels and the radicals. So finally there was a radical takeover in 79. So the reactions don't come immediate. Right. They take time. But I think the founders were definitely right on this. Stay out of the internal affairs. Stay out of mind our own business. Try to be friends with people. Trade with people. We're much better off trading with China than fighting them, and I witnessed both because I was in high school when we were fighting and killing each other in the Korean War. Today we trade with them. Far from perfect, but it's a lot better than shooting and killing. And just think of how the Cold War lasted for so long with the Russians. I think we should take the advice. Trading and talking to people is much better. They're imperfect, but we're imperfect too. For us to lecture and badger and force our way on people, I think the most important thing for people to think about if they disagree with everything I'm saying is what would it be like if they did it to us? What if there was a drone missile dropped on us? What if there were sanctions placed on us, an embargo, and stop imports in our country? That's acts of war, and we do it routinely. And then you wonder why people get mad at us, and all of these sanctions. People suffer and die from these things. So I think to look at it that way and say, well, how would we react? I think everybody would have a different opinion about what we do overseas.
Let me ask you, I have a 13-year-old son, soon to be 14, and I couldn't be prouder of him for everything he's accomplished at his young age. Your son, one of your children, of course, is Senator Rand Paul. How proud are you of him?
Well, very much so, because he's done, very well. And, of course, I was pretty proud of him when he went to the same medical school I went to, too, and also became an ophthalmologist. But he's interested. He was always, we have 5 children, he was always the one that had the most interest in politics. And he studied Austrian economics, and he handles himself very well.
And what about his future? Do you see a presidential run coming up?
Well, the one thing is, I was, in and out of politics for so long. This last go around, within a week or so, they were talking about the next election. Sometimes I get tired of that. It's still pretty early, but that means that people are uneasy with the current status, and they're worried about our bankruptcy and all these things. So they keep talking about, well, when's the change coming? I think it's way too early. I'm sure he has it on his mind. I've never really discussed it with him, but he's doing the traveling and going into the States, so that must be on his mind. But I would think even he would have to wait and see a little bit before you make a firm decision.
So you don't you guys don't speak on the phone, and he's like, hey, Dad, I'm really getting a feel for this. I really think I could do it. I really want to do it. None of those conversations?
Not really. I think that we had our chance when our children were being raised, and they generally knew what we thought about economics and politics. But no, we do talk occasionally, but it's usually pretty boring to other people, because we talk about things like in the family. Why aren't you coming to visit us?
Right. Well, that's typical,
that kind of thing. So, but we don't get into it. It sort of goes. Without saying, we essentially, have the agreements about what we should do in the world.
Right.
And,
so you think he would make if he did run, you'd obviously support him, and you think he'd make a good president, right?
Oh, sure.
Okay. Let me ask you this: how could people? And I do have one question after that. How could people, watch you on your new channel?
Okay, they need to go to website ronpaulchannel.com and get all the information.
That's easy enough, ronpaulchannel.com. Let me ask you, if you were still in the House, where would you fall, sir? And I probably have a hint where you probably would. Would you be on the side of those who say defund Obamacare and risk the government shutdown, and hopefully be saying to people, it wouldn't be us shutting down the government. We'd take it out of the budget. If they want to shut it down over that, let them shut it down. Or would you be on the side of the Republican leadership who says, we have no stomach for this. We can't shut down the government. Where would you be?
Well, I've never voted for any of the appropriations. The only appropriation I ever voted for was for the benefit of the veterans. So I was always against that. I thought we were spending too much. The debt was too bad. And the government will shut down like Detroit shut down. I want to avoid that. So the people who say, yes, let's get our house in order, let's cut back and let's quit the spending, and if government has to take a break for a while, that would be actually good. Why wait for the shutdown to be like Detroit? And people who say, oh, that's not possible, we can always borrow money and print money, they're mistaken, because there's a limit to borrowing and there's a limit to printing, and I think there's winds of change in the air right now, and I think it's going to get harder and harder for our government to continue spending, borrowing, and printing money.
All right. Congressman, I hope you'll come back, and good luck with your TV network.
Very good, Steve. Thank you.
Thank you. Former Congressman Ron Paul. Here on the Steve Malzberg Show, launching the Ron Paul channel. Very interesting, and I disagree with him. I disagree with him on many issues, but most prominently, what I disagree with him on is that he says, "Why can't Iran have a bomb? We have a bomb." But respect his opinion, and we had a very civil conversation, very interesting to talk with him, and I'll also say that. And this I had an answer for him when he said, how would we feel if people sent drones over here, or if we were attacked over here? Well, we know how we would feel, and we know what we would do. We did sort of that kind of thing, after World War II or after Pearl Harbor and after 9/11. But you see, you like to think and you like to hope, and you have to work on the premise that when we do something in a foreign country, if we send a drone to kill a suspected terrorist, or if we send troops in to whatever, that we're doing it in our own national security. that it's for our own protection, that it's to get rid of terrorists in the case of Afghanistan, which is what it started out to be, and Saddam Hussein, who threatened the world with what everybody thought was weapons of mass destruction. So there's a reason. In other words, the folks, when the Japanese bombed us, what was their reason? When 9/11, when the Muslim terrorists came here and ran the planes in there, what was their reason? Well, they didn't like America. They hate America. We were infidels. Well, I'm sorry. We weren't threatening their national security. We weren't doing anything to them. So my answer is to Ron Paul, and if I had more time to get into just that, and at the expense of everything else we talked about, I would have gotten into that debate. Maybe it would turn into a kind of a moral debate, who's to say who's right, et cetera. And I would have loved to have had that debate, and maybe we will at another time. All right, folks, coming up in this hour, at the bottom of this hour, Kendall Coffey as we go spinning the law, and then Senator Rick Santorum will join us as well, right here on the Steve Malzberg Show on Newsmax TV.
The Steve Malzberg Show.
Health insurance is on everybody's mind right now. You either don't have it, or you have it and you think it's too expensive. And you probably feel like you don't have any options. We can help. We are InSphere Insurance Solutions. We offer health insurance plans from major carriers nationwide and likely have a plan that can save you money. Whether you're self-employed, on a COBRA plan that's about to expire, or you simply don't have health insurance where you work and you need it, InSphere Insurance Solutions can help you. Our agents will help you find coverage you can afford. InSphere Insurance Solutions is an authorized agency in all 50 states, including the District of Columbia. Plans may not be available in all states. 800-980-9325. 800-980-9325. 800-980-9325. 800-980-9325.
Newsmax Magazine is proud to present a special tribute to our 40th president, Ronald Reagan. It's a very special documentary and commemorative issue of Newsmax Magazine celebrating the centennial of President Reagan's birth. First, here's a video clip from the award-winning documentary, Rendezvous with Destiny.
We're in the midst of a springtime of hope for America.
You ain't seen nothing yet.
Impulses of an evil empire. Tear down this wall.
I believe that together we can keep this rendezvous with destiny.
In the next several minutes, you will learn things about President Ronald Reagan that you've never seen, heard, or read before. Welcome to today's special Newsmax event celebrating the life and legacy of President Reagan. During this historic presentation, we will commemorate President Reagan's storied life. We'll revisit his 2 terms in office and recollect his proudest achievements and greatest challenges. Ronald Reagan's life reads like a fairy tale of success stories. He was an accomplished athlete, an honored veteran, a famous actor, the governor of California, and of course, our nation's 40th president.
He called himself a citizen politician and only entered politics when he warned government was gaining too much power. By then he was age 54 with a successful career behind him. Twice elected President of the United States, Ronald Wilson Reagan was a contradiction to some, once a Democrat, then a Republican, a champion of smaller government whose own government grew, a fiscal conservative who failed to balance the budget. His critics mistook his affability for weakness, but behind the smile and the charm existed an extraordinary leader with unique skills and bold and revolutionary ideas.
We only had time to share just a few of the top defining moments in Ronald Reagan's presidency, but you'll get to see them all in Rendezvous with Destiny. By the way, the president's close relationship with the Pope is especially fascinating. You'll also learn how dealing with an alcoholic father helped shape Reagan's ability to negotiate. And if you ever wondered what the leader of the free world likes to get for the holidays, well, you'll find that out as well. So let's review today in this free offer. We are sending you a copy of Ronald Reagan, Rendezvous with Destiny, and the collector's limited edition of our issue commemorating the 100th anniversary of President Reagan's birth.
Right now, when you subscribe to Newsmax Magazine, you can own both the DVD and receive the special Reagan 100th Birthday Commemorative Edition. That's $25 in bonus gifts when you subscribe. Go to newsmax.com/Reagan13 to subscribe today. Join the millions who read Newsmax magazine every month.
Breaking news and breaking hearts. This is the Steve Malzberg Show.
All right, welcome back to the Steve Malzberg Show, folks. Piers Morgan, I can't even believe this, and this is thanks to our friends at Newsbusters. Piers Morgan had a guest, A.W.R. Hawkins, and they were talking about how more guns equals less crime. And Hawkins cited Virginia as an example where violent crime fell in 2012 as gun sales increased. And here's what Piers Morgan had to say to him. Cut 29.
This situation in Newtown, is it not disconcerting that in the very place where we saw this horrendous massacre, that we see such a spike in gun sales?
In Virginia, there was a 16% increase in gun sales in 2012. That's 490,119 guns were sold. Now, you would expect, the way you speak, Pierce, for violent crime to rise proportionally. It didn't. It fell 5%. There were 4,378 incidents of violent crime. That includes those crimes against women.
Which
Women were
has the
safer.
highest? Which state has the highest murder rate in the country, according to the FBI? Do you know, in America?
No, I haven't looked at those stats on that, but I can tell you this, Pierce. If we look at Chicago,
Allow me to help you. Allow me to help you.
Can I say one other thing, Pierce?
Well, no, because here's the point, Mr. Hawkins. It's Virginia, the very state you just quoted to me, actually has
And you know
the
what the good
highest
news
murder
is?
rate in the country, according to 2009 statistics by the FBI.
All right, so he quoted 2009 statistics. Well, he's dead wrong, according to our friends at Newsbusters. The FBI 09 crime unit in the United States report placed Virginia behind 23 other states, plus Washington, D.C. and Puerto Rico in the murder and non-negligent manslaughter rate per 100,000 inhabitants. And in case Morgan was referring to firearm murder rate, Virginia did not have the highest in the country. Some of the states with the highest murder and non-negligent manslaughter rates: Louisiana, New Mexico, Maryland, Tennessee, Alabama. In contrast, Virginia had a 4.4, and the others I mentioned had 11, 8, 7. So what is Piers Morgan talking about? On the Steve Malzberg Show, we'd like to know. So, Pierce, if you're out there listening, maybe you owe Virginia and this guest an apology. When we come back, Spinning the Law on Steve Malzberg Show, Newsmax TV.
The Steve Malzberg Show.
If you or someone you love is struggling with addiction to alcohol or drugs, then you must listen to this message, because there is hope. No matter what addiction you or your loved one is coping with, you are just one phone call away from real help. Recovery Hotline makes the healing process simple and affordable by matching people to fully certified and experienced inpatient facilities that are right for their personal situations. Call 800-668-1286 now. Don't wait another day. Money does not have to be an issue. Most insurance is accepted. Just call 800-668-1286 today. Recovery Hotline's mission is to help you or someone you love begin the healing process and get back a healthy and sober life. And we can even help with family interventions and travel arrangements. One phone call is all it takes to get back the life you or your loved one deserves. The call is free. The help is real. Call 800-668-1286. That's 800-668-1286. 800-668-1286. Again, 800-668-1286.
If you're a baby boomer or senior, please listen closely to this important message. Politicians in Washington are quietly plotting to decrease your Social Security payments drastically, and they want to do it soon. In fact, despite rising prices at the gas pump, grocery store, and doctor's office, retirees have received a mere 1.3% annual increase to their Social Security checks. Meanwhile, food stamp recipients have seen their payouts increase over 30% under the Obama administration. That's shocking. So when we stumbled upon a weird trick that could add up to $1,000 to your monthly Social Security checks, we knew we had to share it with you. To get started, simply go to SocialSecurityFree.com. Yes, it's true. You can take simple steps that could add up to $1,000 to your monthly Social Security payouts. Newsmax says SocialSecurityFree.com is a critical resource for anyone over 50. Go to SocialSecurityFree.com. Attention seniors and baby boomers. A new website has been created just for you. SocialSecurityFree.com. At SocialSecurityFree.com, we reveal a weird trick that could help you add $152,000 to your Social Security payouts. For example, did you know how you file for Social Security can dramatically change the amount of money you collect? One simple step could add up to $1,000 to your monthly payouts. And other loopholes we found reveal 33 ways for big savings on your health care. At SocialSecurityFree.com, you will also discover how you could save up to 50% on your groceries, along with 49 other ways to save as much as $50,000 starting today. Newsmax says SocialSecurityFree.com is a critical resource for anyone over the age of 50. So go to SocialSecurityFree.com now to find out how you could add extra money to your Social Security checks. That's SocialSecurityFree.com.
If you need to lose weight and would like to get paid for it, that's right, I said get paid to lose weight. Just listen to the following announcement. The makers of GCE Green Coffee Bean Weight Loss are looking for real testimonials from real people and will pay you per pound to meet or exceed your weight loss goal. Until now, the secrets of green coffee's fat-burning power has been limited, but thanks to Dr. Oz, the secret is out. And now, this authentic green coffee bean fat burner is available in easy-to-take tablets. There are no expensive meals to buy or strenuous workouts. Simply take one tablet before each meal and record your progress. Only the first 200 callers are guaranteed to be accepted into the program. So if you're serious about losing extra weight and want to earn extra cash for fitting into your skinny jeans again, call 800-383-9230 now. Call 800-383-9230. 800-383-9230. Space is limited, so hurry and secure your spot today. 800-383-9230. Some conditions apply. 800-383-9230. 800-383-9230.
Where can you find the Steve Malzberg Show? Everywhere. From your smartphone to satellite radio to Newsmax Live TV to Roku, we have you covered. Here is Steve Malzberg.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, the singers still haven't recovered from whatever they're suffering from for the Spinning the Law opening theme. I will not sing it this time, notwithstanding the fact that Kendall Coffey seemed to appreciate my my vocal efforts last time around. But joining us right now is Kendall Coffey, of course, famed attorney and author of a book by the same name, Spinning the Law. Hey, Kendall, how are you?
Hey, great. Thanks for having me on. I miss your singing, though.
I know. You know, all right, maybe at the end I'll give one little quick Spinning the Law thing.
Okay.
And I want to remind everybody that Rick Santorum will follow Kendall Coffey in just a little while. All right, let's get to it. We have a number of issues, but this one I called the other day one of the most bizarre things I've ever heard in my life. And as an attorney, you probably find it more bizarre than me or more troublesome, but I'll let you decide. The New Mexico Supreme Court has basically said that you could serve on a jury even if you don't understand English. And this came because a convicted murderer appealed, saying that someone who did not understand English was dismissed as a juror, and the court said it was wrong, but his lawyer at the time had an obligation to raise it then, so they didn't overturn his conviction. But how on earth are we going to have non-English speaking people on a jury? Are they going to have translators with, they're going to wear headphones like at the UN? And how do we know that the testimony is being translated properly and all the nuances that go along with, the testimony at trials? Is this insane or not?
Well, I mean, apparently the New Mexico Supreme Court didn't actually apply it. They just said it in what lawyers call a dictum, something that's kind of like, oh, by the way, because the issue wasn't raised, and in fact, the convicted defendant did not win the appeal ultimately over this issue. But I got to admit, this is more than a head scratcher. This has got kind of your jaws dropping and your eyes rolling, because the constitutional right to a fair trial, where everyone in the courtroom completely understands the proceedings at every level is vitally important. And I of course I have a bunch of cases down in Miami, which is a very diverse community. And see, the one thing that we agree with opposing counsel upon, how lawyers fight over who gets on and who gets off a jury, and it's a big process. But if there's any indication that a juror does not truly understand and is comfortable with the English language, you can be assured that that's the one thing that both sides agree on. It just doesn't help the system of justice to have that. And it's beyond even simply translating, for example, witness. There's supposed to be jury deliberations at the end of it. And so we could, it's common sense, it's legal sense, it's U.S. constitutional due process, it's a lot of things. But I'd be astonished if this, what I would call a very unusual decision goes any further. There's going to be agreement from everyone that, of course, a right to fair trial requires that people, the jurors, understand comfortably, not just minimally, but comfortably and fully the English language.
I would hope so. You made me feel a little better about all this, Kendall, because you say head scratcher, I always like banging my head against the wall saying, what the heck is this? Anyway, let's move on as we continue with Kendall Coffey here on the Steve Malzberg Show. Attorney General Eric Holder continuing with the Obama administration's a track record of picking a law and saying, okay, from now on, we're not going to defend this part of the law, or we'll throw out that part of the law, and we'll only enforce this part of the law, which I've been told by Attorney General Mukasey earlier this week is against the law in and of itself. But specifically as it refers to what Eric Holder did on Monday, saying that federal prosecutors will stop seeking longer mandatory sentences for many nonviolent drug offenders. And they're going to take actions in how they charge these people to make sure that they're not eligible for these mandatory sentences. And Mukasey said that this is basically illegal. If you want to change the law, go to Congress.
Yeah, I think it's a remarkable approach, and I'd be surprised if it succeeds. But in the short term, prosecutors have a lot of discretion. But here's the broader question, and I'm going to just get for a moment to talk about policy, because there's been a lot of discussion in the last 10, 15 years that, and many wise people who somewhat discredit the so-called war on drugs. And let me give you the counter argument to that. Crime is down, and certainly back in the 90s and in the 80s, there was an astronomical correlation between street crime and drugs. So much so that when they would test people when they were picked up off the streets, a remarkable percentage of people were positive as of the time of crime, and often on cocaine. We've had some success with enforcement, and it's a success, Steve, that's been consistent. I suppose you could say it's harsh. We're not quite like Turkey and the Midnight Express, but to have something that's effective, what really needs to come across is there is serious punishment each time, every time. And I know there are plenty of sympathetic cases that get caught up in that. Young people that all of a sudden are going away to prison for a long time, and I saw that during my time on the federal side. But there's really no other way to strongly communicate the message unless you are willing to see it through over time, tough punishment, certain punishment, each time, every time, and then you're willing to do that for a number of years. That will, over time, drive the problem down and drive street crime down, which I think has happened. So from my standpoint, and I'm probably in a minority at this point, I think that the tough sentencing policy has been a net positive for society, despite, obviously, individual cases where you see a young person, they don't seem all that bad, and why are they going away for a minimum mandatory of 5 or 10 years? So thanks for letting me speak.
And Kendall, when you say you're in the minority, it depends what circles you're talking about. Certainly, I think if you ask people on the street who are law-abiding citizens, they don't care about, they favor mandatory sentences. I mean, my attitude is, I feel my heart breaks for the person who's given a package and really literally has no idea what's in the package and delivers it to somebody. I mean, that should be avoided. But people who are selling drugs or buying drugs or caught with drugs, even though they're not part of a cartel or a big drug smuggling ring or drug selling ring, as Holder said, I don't think they should get a special break. They're breaking the law. They know they're breaking the law. Then they should suffer the consequences. And you're right. Crime is down. Just as in New York City with stop and frisk and all the policies put in place after David Dinkins by Giuliani and continued and improved upon by Bloomberg, crime is down. And now all of a sudden you got these changes in policy saying, well, we have too many people in jail, So we have to do something about it. So we'll send fewer people to jail, and those low-level drug people are going to turn into, some of them, higher-level criminals.
Well, and of course, in the one of the reasons that society moved toward truth in sentencing, you remember, prison sentences used to be an illusion. Somebody get 20 years, but it would really be 3 years.
Right.
One of the reasons that we moved toward truth in sentencing through the 80s into the 90s was exactly that. Prison time wasn't real. The message on the street was not a convincing message. You had a revolving door at every prison and every jail. And what happens is not only do you reduce the crime rate in the sense that the message does get out that the punishment is going to be swift, severe, and certain, but you literally take somebody who might be committing 10, 20, 50 street crimes a year, and all of a sudden they're off the street years.
And that's the most important thing. Kendall, I will leave you with this: spinning the law, spinning the law. All right, there you go. That's going to have to carry you until we get this band back somehow. Kendall Coffey, thank you so much for your time, sir. Hopefully we'll speak next week.
Go ahead. We'd love to. Thanks.
Take care. Kendall Coffey, ladies and gentlemen. When we come back, Rick Santorum on the Steve Malzberg Show on Newsmax TV.
The Steve Malzberg Show.
Heart disease is the biggest killer disease in America, and this doesn't surprise me. We are addicted to starches, sugars, fatty meats, and salt. People who live in countries with little heart disease eat very differently. One way some people stay heart healthy is by following what is known as the caveman or Stonehenge diet, so named because of its similarity to the way our prehistoric ancestors ate. People who follow this type of diet live off local fruits and root vegetables and get their protein mostly from fish and wild game they shoot themselves. Now, since most of us don't hunt or fish for all our protein, here are some simple tips on how you can start to eat like a caveman, modern day style. First, fill up on fruits and vegetables. Eat them first and you'll be less hungry. Feast on fish, which is rich in nutrients but not in calories. Choose fatty fish like mackerel, herring, sardines, and salmon, which are rich in heart-healthy omega-3 fatty acids. Get out and go for a walk. Remember, our ancestors were hunters and gatherers, so they didn't spend their time sitting in front of a TV or computer all day. If you live more like a caveman or a cave woman, your heart will love you for it. I'm Dr. Chauncey Crandall, and thank you for watching this Heart Health Minute. Remember, it's never too late to prevent or reverse heart disease. Right now, I invite you to discover your own risk for heart disease or even a heart attack by taking my quick, free online quiz at www.simplehearttest.com.
Attention, if you've been classified as a high-risk driver due to DUI, DWI, or tickets for aggressive driving and are required to get expensive and hard-to-find SR22 auto insurance, then you must listen to this message because we can help. We're the largest insurance company in the U.S. specializing in SR22 auto insurance and focused on serving the needs of customers classified by the state as high-risk drivers. We help people get back on their feet by providing easy-to-get, low-cost SR22 insurance that anyone can afford. If you need SR22 auto insurance, or if you have it now and are paying too much, you need to call us today for your free quote at 800-836-4606. Our specialists are standing by waiting for your call. We understand people make mistakes, and we're here to help by making SR22 insurance easy to get and affordable for everyone. The call and quote are free. Call us now at 800-836-4606. That's 800-836-4606. Again, 800-836-4606.
We're in the midst of an obesity epidemic, and I'm not surprised. The statistics on obesity mirror an increasing trend of eating out or ordering in. In fact, some people dine out every night, but eating in restaurants is one of the biggest enemies of your heart. When you're in a restaurant, you don't really know what you're getting. and the calorie counts of many restaurant dishes are astronomical. In fact, some single dishes contain more calories than we should eat in an entire day. Eating in fast food restaurants is even worse. A diet of hamburgers, French fries, and shakes constitutes a fast lane to the emergency room. If you really want to help your heart, get in the habit of cooking simple meals at home. Here are 3 easy tips that will make your food taste better than even the best restaurant. Choose the best fruit in season. Your local farmer's market is a great place to start. It will probably still cost less than that pie you were thinking of buying. Get in the habit of using fresh herbs. You can use them in egg white omelets or dust them on the fish you grill or bake. And for a light dessert, choose a square or 2 of dark chocolate that you and your spouse can enjoy. There are lots of ways to make your heart healthy, but there are also lots of ways to damage it. That's why I wrote Fix It, Dr. Crandall's 90-day program. In it, I'll tell you how to kickstart your metabolism every day, how to pick the best diet for you, how to stop hunger from sabotaging your diet, the 7 superfoods for your heart. I'm Dr. Chauncey Crandall, and thanks for watching this Heart Health Minute.
The Steve Malzberg Show is just a bit different from the other radio shows. We have TV cameras. Watch the show at Newsmax.com or listen on your favorite radio station. Here's Steve Malzberg.
All right, folks, welcome back to the Steve Malzberg Show. And while we await, hopefully, the call from Senator Rick Santorum, there's another case that I didn't have time to get into with Kendall Coffey, and maybe we could do this next week because this is ongoing. And you may recall the case of Caitlin Hunt from Florida. She was a cheerleader arrested on felony sexual assault charges for her relationship with a 14-year-old girl. So it was a lesbian affair, and she was offered a plea deal, which she rejected. She went on this media tour, if you will, with her parents, who claimed that they're only picking on her because she's a lesbian and because it was 2 girls, even though she was 18 and the girl was 14. If that had been a boy and a girl, I mean, no question about it. So they've now offered her a second plea deal to avoid jail, and she would have to admit wrongdoing, and she would have to plead guilty to several misdemeanors and a felony. Now, her mother says she's going to reject the plea deal again if a felony is included in the charges. And I got to tell you, I was watching Lisa Bloom on CNN and another legal analyst who's also, I consider, to the left. They both women, and they both said she should take this plea deal because she will, they said, likely be convicted if this goes to trial. And she could spend a lot of time in jail. And, you know, this parading around trying to make it sound like they're picking on her because this was a lesbian relationship is nonsense. And it's neither here nor there, because the fact of the matter is that what she did was against the law. And the parents of the 14-year-old girl wanted charges pressed. And they have every right to want charges pressed, just as if a 14-year-old man was having sex with a 18-year-old man was having sex with a 14-year-old girl. You know, it's just you can't do it. It's against the law. There's a felony involved. So this is her 19th birthday. She's now 19, I believe Caitlin is. And so we'll see how this progresses. Joining us now is the one and only former senator from Pennsylvania, former presidential candidate, soon to be future, I'm sure, here, Senator Rick Santorum. Hello, Rick. How are you?
Hello there, Mr. Malzberg. How are you this fine day?
I am good, good. It is a fine day. I understand you were with Mr. Cavuto, and that's always a good thing, and busy day for you. All right, so let me ask you this: as you look at what's going on and the world is blowing up around us, in particular in Egypt, I'll ask you what I've asked several others: how much a direct responsibility do you believe that this administration's actions with regard to Egypt from the get-go How much responsibility do they bear for what's happening there now?
It goes back to the speech, the first foreign policy speech he gave in Cairo, where he basically told the Muslim Brotherhood and all radical Islamic organizations, "You're good with me, and we're going to reset the table, and we're going to have you as part of the discussion," which opened up the door for the Arab Spring, and you saw him side with the folks in the streets, which we knew the Muslim Brotherhood would be the strongest of those horses who would be replacing Mubarak. Then when the Muslim Brotherhood took charge, he accepted the legitimacy of this radical Islamic group as a governing party in Egypt, and now he's condemning the removal after it was very clear, crystal clear, that what Morsi and the Islamic Brotherhood, Muslim Brotherhood, were doing was the old Hugo Chavez, one man, one vote, one time. And they were going to consolidate power, and that was going to be the last of the elections, or last of any legitimate elections in Egypt. They were imposing very slowly but surely. They were imposing Sharia law, and we were going to end up with a radical Islamic head for Egypt. And for the president to stand aside and say, look, you got to put them back in power. You've got to stand down. I mean, the president doesn't know who our enemies are, and that's because he refuses to define who the enemy is. And this is a direct result of all of that policy.
I couldn't agree with you more. Let me shift to domestic politics here. Newt Gingrich yesterday, speaking at the RNC summer meeting, said that the Republican Party has zero ideas for replacing Obamacare. And he said, quote, "We are caught up right now in a culture, and you see it every single day, where as long as we are negative and as long as we are vicious and as long as we can tear down our opponent, we don't have to learn anything, and so we don't." I mean, first of all, there's been many bills in the House passed as Obamacare alternatives, and there are plans in the waiting. Why do you think he would say that?
Well, I find that really remarkable that Newt would say that. I mean, Newt runs an organization for years called the Center for Health Transformation. If there's anybody who should say the Republicans don't, unless he doesn't identify himself as a Republican anymore, Newt has a lot of ideas about what health care is, and as far as I checked, he's still a Republican. And there's a lot of folks, including me, who thinks he has some pretty good ideas. Not every one of them, but a lot of them are good ideas. And in fact, there's a lot of Republicans who have good ideas as to how to move forward into a more free market, private sector healthcare system. So who admit that government is the problem and healthcare not the solution, and there are ways in which we can structure the free market to allow for better patient care, for higher quality care at lower cost.
Yeah, I mean, he also said, I think part of what we have to do in the area of the Obamacare disaster is get beyond being anti-Obama. We have to reconvince people you could have hope in America and we could have a better future. I mean, I know he was hired by CNN to host Crossfire, but I didn't know this was a requirement.
Well, look, he is right in that being negative only is not an answer. I mean, if that's his point, okay, point given, you have to propose alternatives, but don't say that there aren't alternatives, and don't say that people don't propose alternatives. I think a legitimate criticism is we don't highlight alternatives as much as we do, but when you're a minority party, as he well knows because he served in the minority for a long time and had lots of ideas that nobody knew about until he became Speaker. So I think a part of that is just the reality of being a minority party and not having really the opportunity to have your ideas get aired.
We're talking to Rick Santorum here on the Steve Malzberg Show. Chris Christie took the platform today at the RNC Boston meeting. What's your views on Christie? I mean, is this guy a serious presidential candidate as a Republican? Do you believe he could ever win the Republican primaries?
I don't know. I mean, I'm someone who you're probably the last person to ask as to who can't win, because I was told from the very, very beginning I could never win a Republican primary, and we did okay with the limited resources we had. So,
but you're the opposite. I mean, you appeal to a base. You appeal to who conservatives and Republicans, and I think, quite frankly, Americans are. He might appeal to a general audience in America, but do you think he would the base would come out in these primaries and vote for him with his very non-conservative views on many issues?
I think Chris is a good man. He's done for a Republican in New Jersey. He's done a good job in the state of New Jersey. But he's clearly not someone who is in the center of the Republican Party nationally, and as a result of that, he's got a much more difficult task to make.
Now, of course, you gave a great speech this past Saturday. I was always take great pride in listening to you speak because you say so many of the things that so many of us feel. And of course, you're considered on the other side of the party from the Chris Christies, if you will, along with the Cruzes and the Pauls. What's your take on this split in the party?
Well, I mean, I sort of look at it as particularly, you look at Christie, and I won't mention Cruz in this, Brett, but certainly the Pauls, actually, the Christie faction and the Paul faction actually come together on one area that's a big concern to me, which is, sort of the moral and cultural issues. Both of them want to jettison, one from the left and one from the right. And that's a big concern to me that we have movements within, sort of on either end of the party, if you will, who sort of saying, well, we don't need to be discussing these issues anymore. I think that's dangerous. The whole foundation of the Republican Party from the very beginning in 1856, in its first convention, was the dignity of every human life. And that dignity of every human life is the foundation of which all our policies are built, of respect for human life and respect for the dignity of persons economically, socially, in a family life. And when we jettison that, then we jettison the whole foundation. We jettison the family as the basic building block of society. And we say, well, marriage and the family are not that important. It's just sort of one of many other lifestyles. Then again, we sort of jettison the whole idea and foundation upon which, our society is built. And I think we have a real problem. So that's one of the things that I, tangentially talked about in Iowa, that we have to engage in the culture, not in politics, but we have to do it through where the culture is being molded, and that's in the popular culture. In other words, the arts and entertainment. And that is a winning message. That is well, I know you're now the CEO of a company that could do that, but that's a winning message because instead of running away from the life issue and everything you just said, Republicans need to take it on full steam ahead as you do. We got 30 seconds. Talk about when's the first movie coming out. Talk about the company. Well, we have a company called Echolight Studios, and you can find out about us at echolight.com. We're still very much of a new company. We'll be launching a new website and 2 new movies coming up here in the next couple of months.
Excellent.
We're not quite ready to announce them, but we will shortly.
All right, Rick, great to talk to you. Thank you, sir.
Thanks, Steve.
Rick Santorum, ladies and gentlemen, right here on the Steve Malzberg Show on Newsmax TV.
The Steve Malzberg Show.
I love you, son, so it hurts when you say I hate you. I'm your mother. I'm tired of you disrespecting me when you don't get your way. I work hard to make sure you have everything you need. I should be able to ask you to get out of bed in the morning without a fight. So from now on, things are going to be different. I ordered the Total Transformation Program. We're not going to scream and fight anymore. I'm going to tell you what to do in a different way, and you're going to do it. You're not going to call me ugly names anymore, and if you do, you're going to get consequences that'll keep you from calling me ugly names. We're not going to do things your way anymore, son. We're going to do things the Total Transformation way.
Get the Total Transformation free. Just order the program, tell us how it works for you, and you can keep it for free. Call 1-888-577-9520. 1-888-577-9520. Call now. Call 1-888-577-9520. 1-888-577-9520.
Hi, this is Mike Reagan. Folks ask me, what would Ronald Reagan do if he were with us today? I believe the first thing he'd do is stop Obamacare. Already it's in effect with higher taxes, hidden fees, skyrocketing insurance rates, big Medicare cuts, and some insurance plans are hit with a 40% tax. Protect yourself by getting the Obamacare Survival Guide. It's already a #1 New York Times bestseller. Newsmax says it's the best guide to the new law, giving you the strategies, tips, and loopholes you need to know. If you're insured on Medicare, a business owner, a medical professional, just about anyone, you need this book. Get the #1 bestseller, the Obamacare Survival Guide, at bookstores everywhere. Or get our special $4.95 offer and save $15 off the cover price.
Scroll down now to claim your copy of Obamacare Survival Guide for the special internet offer of only $4.95.
Hello and welcome to your Newsmax Now update. I'm John Bachman. The death toll in Egypt rises where security forces continue to clash with supporters of ousted President Mohamed Morsi. The violence now being called the worst nationwide bloodshed in decades. Today, soldiers were tearing down and cleaning up the remains of camps that hosted those pro-Morsi groups up until yesterday. Some reports now say as many as 500 people were killed in those violent clashes with state security forces. The worst of the fighting erupted on Wednesday after police moved into those camps set up by supporters of Morsi. The Muslim Brotherhood said that it would bring down this quote-unquote military coup, but they also stressed it remains committed to a peaceful struggle despite heavy loss of life when government forces broke up those protest camps. And the question here at home, what does all of this bloodshed mean for the U.S., its relationship with Egypt, as well as the rest of the Arab world? Well, up until now, the United States had urged the Egyptian military to avoid using violence. That was ignored. The Egyptian military also abandoned political talks last week with the opposition, which only increased White House anxiety that Egypt could be headed towards civil war. What's at stake? Egyptian control of the Suez Canal and the Camp David peace accords with Israel. Republican Senators John McCain and Lindsey Graham, recently back from Egypt as emissaries of the White House, have criticized the Obama administration for refusing to call the military-led ouster of Morsi a coup. Experts say the turmoil in Egypt illustrates the limits of U.S. power. And with the president on vacation at Martha's Vineyard, it was up to Secretary of State John Kerry to plead for political compromise.
Egyptians inside and outside of the government need to take a step back. They need to calm the situation and avoid further loss of life. Violence is simply not a solution in Egypt or anywhere else.
Meanwhile, Pope Francis today makes an appeal to end the violence in Egypt after holding a public mass in the hilltop town of Castel Gandolfo, Italy. The Pope asked the faithful to join him in praying for, quote, peace, dialogue, and reconciliation in that beloved land, referring to Egypt. Large crowds had gathered in the town square for what's considered a rare visit by Pope Francis because he's breaking Vatican tradition by spending the summer in Rome rather than at the lavish Castel Gandolfo Palace. And the United Nations Chemical Weapons Team is expected to arrive soon in Syria. The Syrian government has accepted plans for the UN to investigate several sites where chemical weapons were allegedly used earlier this year. The UN team is expected to remain in Syria for up to 2 weeks. And coming up next on your Newsmax Now update, hurricane season heats up with 2 potential storms on the horizon. Plus, a Newsmax exclusive with former Secretary of Defense Donald Rumsfeld on the deteriorating situation in Egypt.
In 2013, half of your friends, family, and neighbors may lose their jobs, all while you are robbed of 90% of your life savings, investments, and home's value. Controversial economist Robert Wiedemer, who was the only expert to predict the recession, has released a startling video with shocking evidence that the powers that be have tried to ban. But that hasn't stopped 50 million people from getting the truth. Watch it at Aftershock911.com. Aftershock911.com. In 2013, half of your friends, family, and neighbors may lose their jobs, all while you are robbed of 90% of your life savings, investments, and home's value. Controversial economist Robert Wiedemer, who was the only expert to predict the recession, has released a startling video with shocking evidence that the powers that be have tried to ban. But that hasn't stopped 50 million people from getting the truth. Watch it at AftershockVideo.com. Aftershockvideo.com.
Are you at least 62 years old like me? Could you use an extra $50,000, $100,000 or more to live a better life? Then please consider the benefits a reverse mortgage can provide to you. With a reverse mortgage, you can have your mortgage payments stopped altogether and get equity out of your home to live on. And you can use the money to help you live a better life. How nice would that be, not to have a mortgage payment? Qualifying for a reverse mortgage is simple, since there are no income, asset, employment, or credit requirements. However, you must be 62 years or older, own your home outright, or have a very low balance on the mortgage, and be prepared to live in it throughout the rest of the loan. Call now for more information.
800-831-1560, 800-831-1560, 800-831-1560. That's 800-831-1560.
And welcome back. The Atlantic Ocean and the Gulf of Mexico are getting interesting just in time for the peak of hurricane season. Meteorologists say there are two storm systems worth watching right now: a tropical depression off the coast of Africa, which is expected to become Tropical Storm Erin any time now. There's also a disturbance off the Yucatan Peninsula, which also has a high probability of development. And today, the Obama administration canceled plans to conduct a joint military exercise with Egypt following the deadly violence there. But during a Newsmax exclusive, former Secretary of State Donald Rumsfeld tells us that calls from people to further sever ties with Egypt, like cutting U.S. aid to the country, will only make things worse.
It would be a very serious mistake. We are dealing with countries that have different cultures, different languages, different neighbors, different circumstances, and they're not going to behave like we behave. We've got to recognize that.
And this has been your Newsmax Now update for August 15th. I'm John Bachman. Now here's the Steve Malzberg Show in New York.
Are you ready?
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Broadcasting live from the Newsmax studios, this is the Steve Malzberg Show. Be a part of the action by calling 855-777-9660. That's 855-777-9660. Or email Steve at malzbergshow@newsmax.com. Here is Steve Malzberg.
First, the pensions for both Jacksons. They were public employees. His work for the federal government since being elected to Congress in 1995. Her work for the city of Chicago since being elected alderman in 2007. Ex-Congressman Jackson is eligible to receive $8,700 per month in disability pay due to his bipolar condition, and could receive a partial federal pension of $45,000 per year once he is eligible. While on the city council, Sandy Jackson had automatic pension contributions of more than $50,000 withdrawn from her pay, even though she chose not to be a member of the city pension fund. Her contributions of $51,279 and change are her property and could be withdrawn at any time.
All right, folks, welcome back to the Steve Malzberg Show. That report from WLS, the ABC 7i team, investigating the fact that Jesse Jackson Jr., who's going to jail, and his wife, who might have eventually wind up in jail a little later, especially Jesse Jackson Jr., though, going to get a lot of money, and you and I are going to keep paying him. Joining us now to talk about a whole host of things is the chief congressional correspondent for the Washington Examiner, Susan Ferrechio. Hello, Susan.
Hey, Steve. Thanks for having me on the show.
It's always my pleasure. All right, so, I mean, this Jesse Jackson thing, I mean, to me, as a skeptic, as a cynic, how convenient that, while all this was going on, it was discovered he had bipolar disease or whatever it's called, and spent time in rehab for it. And now because of it, he'll be eligible to get $8,700 a month, probably for the rest of his life.
Well, it's really interesting because I've noticed over the years that when lawmakers get in trouble, they very frequently claim an outlying factor. For instance, a lot of them will say alcoholism or drugs played a role in influencing their behavior. And now in this case, we have mental illness perhaps influencing why he spent the campaign money on personal items. It's a great card if you can play it. It sort of lends to the atmosphere that our elected officials get the kind of treatment that an ordinary person who breaks the law wouldn't get. And I think that sort of reflects an overlying sentiment and the public has right now. If you look at this health care law, there's a big story out about how members of Congress and their staff will be exempt from some of the more painful aspects of the implementation of the law. Well, the rest of us will have to be under it full force. So there's always these exceptions for our elected officials. And I think the public is really getting kind of fed up with it. But the question is, is there anything that can be done? Well, because they're the ones in power, they make the rules. And you see that, I do up in Congress because I watch how they make the rules. When they were crafting this bill for the Affordable Care Act, the staff specifically excluded themselves from it. There are a lot of people who found that really outrageous, and that's why someone like Senator Grassley tried to reimpose the law on the staff members, but then now they've got the exception, helped by President Obama, so that they don't have to worry about losing their premium support.
Right, he got personally involved, Obama, I think.
Yeah, and other people there's a fear that if they don't get their
people would leave,
people would leave, and to be fair, the Kaiser Foundation did a study, and in private companies, most people get a good portion of their, when you get health insurance through your employer, they pay the lion's share of that. And so that's what the staffers were saying, is that we're on par with what the private sector was getting anyway, and now we wouldn't be. Now we would lose that, and so there'd be a big brain drain because everybody would just go work either other areas of the federal government or whatnot to get that money back. And so, you have this whole atmosphere, here's an exception because you're in Congress, or here's an exception because you're, a member of, but he is going, 30 months. It's not like he's going off on probation or to a halfway house. He's going to have to serve real time for this. And so is his wife, and they have children. So it's pretty serious. He's serving the kind of time that I think there's some other lawmakers did for even more serious corruption. So I don't, in some ways, I don't feel like he really got off easy. But this whole thing with the mental illness coming in and how that's going to benefit him,
Right. Yeah.
He also a good lawyer.
I guess.
Jesse Jackson Jr. and his dad is Jesse Jackson.
And he's got a good doctor, I guess, too. Okay, we're talking to Susan Ferrechio here on the Steve Malzberg Show. How surprised were you? I just talked to Rick Santorum about this right before you. That Newt Gingrich yesterday up in Boston at the RNC said that Republicans or the GOP has zero ideas for health care. And Santorum himself said, wait a minute, said if he's still a Republican, I mean, he's had a group that has put forth many ideas on health care. So if he's still a Republican, that's at least one idea on health care. But, the House, I mean, there are people there. They've passed bills. They've passed alternatives in the House. So how could Newt say that? What's he trying to do?
Well, he's a big thinker. And when you compare what the kind of low murmurs of what the Republicans have tried to put there for health care compared to this big, massive thing that the Democrats passed, I guess maybe it pales in comparison. The fact is that's what the public would prefer. That irony of what Newt Gingrich said was that he said there's no big ideas out there for health care. Well, guess what? I don't think the public, if you look at the poll numbers anyway, wanted a really big thing that we ended up getting. So, there's a disconnect even between what he's saying and what the public wants. When Republicans talk about reforming health care, they talk about smaller elements of it, which I actually think when you look at what people prefer, it matches more with what the public is looking for. For instance, more access to health care for pre-existing conditions. Not excluding people for various reasons.
Right. They should make a one sheet. The Republicans should make a one sheet with all the, donut hole, no pre-existing conditions. You want to keep your kids on your plan, that kind of stuff, and just say this is our plan.
I know, and I think it kind of gets drowned out, and part of it is that the media preference is to ignore it.
Well, absolutely, yeah.
But and it is because Republicans actually, I don't believe, agree on a lot of this stuff right now on really the way forward. And there's sort of a lack of a big, bold leader in the Republican leadership who can get out there and talk about what alternatives would be. I mean, who really is the spokesperson for the Republicans right now? Is it Reince Priebus? No. Who is it? Is it John Boehner? Certainly not. Is it Rush Limbaugh? Who knows who it is out there? If they had that person, maybe they could push forward big, bold ideas, but they don't.
Well,
and when Mitt Romney was a de facto head, but back when he was the nominee, you didn't hear him talking about alternatives. You heard him talking about repeal.
No, I got to tell you, Priebus had the best comment. He's the only one that I have heard say on the Republican side, and he said it on one of the shows on Sunday, I think to Candy Crowley. He said, wait a minute, why would we be shutting down the government? If the Republicans could unite and decide to defund, keep the Obamacare out of the budget, and the Democrats and the president decide not to accept that and the government shuts down, why are we shutting down the government? And that's what Republicans should go around and say.
Mm-hmm. They do. They have said that, but it gets ignored. And I think because the president has got the pulpit and he's really good at, with these head-to-head crises, getting out there. He plays it so well. It's almost like old hand to him, and he yawns his way through. He gets in front up to the podium, and says, "Well, they're doing it again. They're
right.
Yep. And people, there's a control of message, and the Democrats have the control. Republicans are always a little bit too shy about the whole thing, in my opinion. They're not bold enough in pushing what their view is forward. I mean, I think that would help their cause, because the Democrats usually win these things despite the logic that you just pointed out and Reince Priebus pointed out. There's not a lot. It gets drowned out.
Absolutely. Well, the media, you know who they're going to blame and what their coverage is, and then that's one reason why. We're talking to the chief congressional correspondent for the Washington Examiner, Susan Ferrechio, here on the Steve Malzberg Show. All right, let's move to immigration reform. And your colleague at the Examiner, Byron York, told me earlier in this week that he believes, and he's reflecting the concerns of many, and I wonder if you agree with this, that immigration is going to pass in the House, however it passes, because the focus as the Congress is home and the town meetings take place and the people talk, most Republicans, most conservatives feel immigration reform is dead, that the House isn't going to do it. That's the impression they have. So they're focusing on health care and not talking about immigration reform. So the Republicans are going to come back, and the leadership and everybody's going to say, well, how many people actually talked to you about immigration reform? How many objected? And it's going to be, well, virtually none. Well, then let's just do it. And that's one thing he thinks might happen because of the focus on health care. Do you agree?
Well, I think there's two schools of thought on immigration right now. There's some people who think, no, it's not going to happen, and for a variety of reasons, how part of which will be consumed by more pressing issues which involve the government funding and the debt limit, that will consume them to the point where they simply cannot take on a third massive divisive issue. And Congress can only handle, they really truly cannot juggle many things up there if they're all, very politically treacherous. They can usually only handle one big politically treacherous thing at a time, and already they've got a couple that they have to deal with. Okay, so that's one reason why immigration may not happen. And then you get the time element combined with that. You run out of time very quickly in the fall because of various recesses, and also because the year runs out and we come back and it's election time again. We're talking 2014 elections, and then it becomes very hard to pass something like immigration reform in an election year. So in that sense, it just may not happen. It just may not happen for that reason. But there are others who think, Boehner's thinking about his legacy, what has he accomplished? You had Medicare Part D for Hastert, you have health care law for Nancy Pelosi. Will he want to try to push something big through and then say sayonara? Try to, not so much a kamikaze dive, but a swan song. that would say, because if he does push through a comprehensive plan, his chances of becoming speaker again, of course, diminish. So that's the other alternative. They would really be ambushing a lot of the conference by saying we're going to do immigration reform in the form of something like what the Senate bill is, because there's a lot of guys there that really don't like that, despite the fact that there's a lot of pressure coming from big corporations and the mainstream Republicans, a lot of the donors who really want immigration reform. So there's these two dueling elements.
Then you have Marco Rubio, who basically says, well, the president has done this before. He did it when the DREAM Act didn't go through in 2012, and he then decided who he was going to deport and who he was not going to deport, so by executive order or by deciding which part of the law to enforce and not enforce. So he says if we don't do immigration reform comprehensively, the president will just issue kind of like a blanket pardon of all the illegals here or grant them citizenship by executive order. And I'm saying, so you're gonna run your policy making around the fact that we have a president who is willing to do things of this magnitude on his own and circumvent the Congress? So you're going to capitulate to avoid that? You're going to give it to him rather than make him do it? I mean, I think that's a dangerous thought process.
Mm-hmm. Well, I personally think what Rubio will do has mostly to do with his own political future and less than what the best policy is. I think what he is hoping at this point, just given the backlash I think that he's experienced, I think
he needs cover, right? He needs cover.
I think Rubio would like to see this thing go away at this point because he's really in a tough spot, and it doesn't really look the way he wanted it to look. It's far broader and more liberal of a piece of legislation than he was really comfortable with. He wanted the piecemeal approach. He wanted more stronger border security. So, I frankly think if it went away, Rubio wouldn't be all that upset because it's not. I don't think it's going to help him with the base. People are really furious with Rubio over this, particularly in his own state.
Yeah,
it's really a danger.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. All right, Susan, we appreciate it. We'll speak to you next week. Thank you.
Okay, Steve. Thanks a lot.
Bye-bye. Susan Ferrechio, ladies and gentlemen, the chief congressional correspondent for the Washington Examiner. By the way, in the next half hour, like we're going to talk to, I mentioned it earlier, we're going to talk to Iranian writer, film producer, and human rights activist who is so plugged in and has a family history that you're going to want to hear about in Iran. And her name is Banafeshi Zand. And Banafeshi Zand will join us in the next half hour, and you're going to learn a lot. We're going to ask her a lot about Iran's role in Egypt, or how Iran views Egypt, and how Iran might fill a vacuum or take advantage of this situation, as well as their threat to the U.S. and the Middle East in general, and in parts of Africa as well. All that straight ahead right here, 855-777-9660 on the Steve Malzberg Show on Newsmax TV.
The Steve Malzberg Show.
Bad credit card debt happens to good people. Credit card companies lure you in with low introductory rates or low minimum payments, and before you know it, you owe thousands of dollars in credit card debt. It has happened to millions of good people just like you. But here's the good news. Thanks to a powerful program now approved, anyone with $2,000 or more in credit card debt can cut their credit card payments up to half, and even reduce or eliminate interest charges altogether. That's right. Our nationwide nonprofit program is helping U.S. residents cut their credit card payments. Call 800-613-3159 now. The call and information are free. We've helped over 500,000 people with their credit card debt, and now we can help you. Call 800-613-3159 to see how this powerful nonprofit program can work for you. Bad credit card debt happens to good people. Get free of credit card debt today. Call 800-613-3159. That's 800-613-3159. Again, 800-613-3159.
Do you owe the IRS? Do you have unfiled tax returns? Have you received a wage garnishment or bank levy? Maybe a lien has been filed against you. OMG Tax can help you with all your IRS tax problems. Don't wait another second. Take action now. Call my team at OMG Tax. Honest and professional, we don't make false promises. If you owe back taxes, or if the IRS is garnishing your paycheck, you need help now. OMG Tax can help you get your life back to normal. If you're serious about handling your tax matter, call OMG Tax now and get the peace of mind you deserve. Don't let the IRS take your next paycheck. Stop waiting and call our team at OMG Tax. OMG Tax has a straightforward, no-nonsense approach and has helped many Americans resolve their IRS nightmare. Call OMG Tax now.
Call 1-800-255-6485. That's 1-800-255-6485. 800-255-6485.
My patients still don't know what Obamacare means for them. And how could they? There are already 13,000 pages of regulations, and the bureaucrats are just getting started. Obamacare will change your health care, and you need to understand how. There are hidden taxes and fines, big cuts in Medicare, even new regulations on what services doctors can offer you. Some businesses could get hit with a 40% additional tax on your health care plan. Please, get the Obamacare Survival Guide today. It's the best book explaining the new law. It's easy to read, everything you need to know to protect yourself, your family, your business. The Obamacare Survival Guide at bookstores everywhere.
Special internet-only offer right now at Obamacare911.com.
Tired of calls, levies, and liens from the IRS, or hiring others who don't get the job done? Call Wall & Associates and you'll never talk to the IRS again. The IRS has a program to eliminate tax debt, and Wall & Associates professionals are trained to maximize its benefits for you. You always speak with a live person with real support and real knowledge. We've helped thousands of taxpayers like you settle their tax debt with the IRS for a fraction of what they owe. We solve tax problems. Call Wall & Associates now. 800-574-6029. We have the professionals who know how to solve tax problems. If you owe money to the IRS, your tax problems are not going away by themselves, and the passage of time will only make matters worse. Act now, before it's too late. Call Wall & Associates right now to speak to a professional tax relief agent. Call 800-574-6029. That's 800-574-6029. Again, 800-574-6029.
Steve might be a bit of a hypochondriac, but he never gets sick of breaking news. This is the Steve Malzberg Show. Call Steve at 1-855-777-9660. That's 1-855-777-9660. Here's Steve.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, you're listening to and watching the Steve Malzberg Show, heard everywhere on radio, on the web, on Newsmax TV, Roku, and on apps all over the world. So you're a Major League Baseball fan, right? And one of the complaints you really don't have, no matter how much you love the game, one of the complaints you don't have is that baseball games go too quickly, right? I mean, I never understood, if you're a baseball fan, and this is what I never understood about the announcers who complain about the fact that the game was so long. You're being paid to do the game. You're an announcer. If it's a long game, chances are it's a high-scoring game or exciting game, or maybe not necessarily. But that's not the point. Talking about the time of the game and poo-pooing it if it's too long or whatever. Nobody cares about your social life if you're a baseball announcer. Just announce the game. My point is, nobody's going to claim that baseball is over too quickly. On a rare occasion, when you get a 2-hour game, or a game maybe a few minutes under 2 hours, probably a very well-pitched game, probably a game that has a lot to talk about for the pitching side, not too much offense, but that's fine. Everybody loves a good pitcher to do once in a while. So here comes Major League Baseball, and they're expanding their instant replay or their video review process next season. Managers will now have a tool that they never had. The commissioner says it's a historic moment for the game. Managers will be allowed 1 challenge over the first 6 innings of games and 2 challenges after the 7th inning until the end of the game. And calls that are challenged will be reviewed by a crew in Major League Baseball headquarters in New York City, like they do in the NHL. They send it to Toronto, and they look at it over there to see if it's a goal. And they'll make the final ruling. I mean, the owners voted on this. But this is insane. I mean, in the last 2 innings, you're going to have each manager with 2 instant replays to slow the game down even more. Look, I know the technology's available. I understand that. But it's a baseball game. You win it, you lose it. Human error from the players, human error from the umpires, the human eye. I mean, come on with this increase in instant replay. It's a joke. It's no good either. All right, we're coming back right here. Don't go away. Another half hour left on the Steve Malzberg Show on Newsmax TV.
The Steve Malzberg Show.
Hi, this is Dick Morris. Obamacare is taking full effect this year with over 15,000 pages of regulations. You need to know how this law affects you. That's why you should get your copy of Obamacare Survival Guide. It's easy to read and the best guide to the new law. Even if you're currently insured or a senior on Medicare or a business owner, a medical professional, or really any citizen, you need the Obamacare Survival Guide. In it, you'll find about hidden taxes, fees, and fines, including a 40% tax on some health plans. I warned you about Obamacare. It's rationing, Medicare cuts, and will trigger doctor shortages. Now the Obamacare Survival Guide gives you the simple steps to protect your family. So get the Obamacare Survival Guide at bookstores everywhere. It's already a #1 Amazon bestseller. Or get our special $4.95 offer and save $15 today by going to Obamacare911.com. Obamacare911.com. That's Obamacare911.com.
Hello, my name is Fred Fleitz, and I'm the managing editor of Lignet. You've probably seen our name preceding some of the stories you read on Newsmax or heard Lignet referenced on Fox News, C-SPAN, or CNN. Perhaps you've asked yourself, what is Lignet? Lignet is an acronym for the Langley Intelligence Group Network, a private Washington, D.C. based service that provides global intelligence, in-depth analysis, and detailed forecasting. Lignet's staff and advisors include former CIA officers, national security experts, presidential advisors, and top-level government officials from around the world. I myself held several national security posts for the U.S. government during my 25-year career with the Central Intelligence Agency, the Defense Intelligence Agency, the U.S. Department of State, and the House Permanent Select Committee on Intelligence. Our lead advisor is General Michael Hayden, the former director of the CIA. He is joined by former U.S. Ambassador to the United Nations John Bolton and former Chairman of the National Intelligence Council and Special Assistant to President Ronald Reagan Fritz Ehrmann, former U.S. Ambassador to Venezuela Otto Reich, and former clandestine service officer Frederick Russman. Former Chairman of the House Intelligence Committee Peter Hoekstra also joined our advisory board staff. Every day, our goal is to use our expertise, our resources, and our worldwide staff to take the pulse of the ever-changing political and economic landscape and the threats we face on a daily basis. Whether you are following global events for your portfolio or business, or just interested in the world around you, LigNet provides what you need to know to keep up with global events. There are many. Every day, LigNet members receive the Morning Brief, a daily email that provides summaries and links to our daily analysis to keep you up to date on LigNet's assessments. LigNet members receive unrestricted access to LigNet's secure database of global analysis. All of our special reports, previous analyses, and exclusive video interviews with intelligence insiders are available to members 24 hours a day. But you also get top-notch analysis that resembles the President's Daily Brief, the classified intelligence assessment delivered to the President of the United States every morning. LigNet also sends breaking news emails to our membership list. If there is a development of global proportions or a terror alert, our subscribers are always the first to know. I hope you now have a better understanding of what LigNet is, but more importantly, recognize how truly invaluable LigNet can be. As the old saying goes, knowledge is power.
Join LigNet for $1. Go to lignet.com.
This is not your typical Screamfest talk show. No. This is the next generation of talk radio. Here is Steve Malzberg.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, coming up in just a few minutes, Banafsheh Zand will join us, Iranian writer, film producer, human rights activist. Very fascinating lady with a very interesting perspective on Iran, and we'll talk about it with her. Al Sharpton was at it the other day on his radio show, because he's got a radio show and a TV show, of course. Great civil rights leader, former presidential candidate, upstanding citizen, no questions asked. And he came up with this battered race syndrome thingamajig. Give a listen to Cut 24.
Some of us have battered race syndrome. We've developed, so many of us, a loser's complex. It's almost like the battered syndrome. When people are battered by their mate, they just automatically get ready for being battered, never occurring to them that they are full human beings and shouldn't be submitting and subjecting themselves to that. Okay. But once you create the mentality that you're supposed to tolerate a whipping, a beating, abuse, that you don't even complain about it or report it because you think you deserve it.
Okay, battered race syndrome. Now, he's not talking about, even if you give credence to what he's saying, he's not talking about in the past. He's talking about blacks now, today. Blacks. And who are they being beaten and abused by? Apparently, society, I guess. Here's Cut 25.
Well, some of us have battered race syndrome. We can't win, ain't gonna win, that ain't gonna work, nothing gonna work, because we have battered race syndrome. We've beaten ourselves into defeatism. So they don't have to beat us, we beat ourselves with our own battered syndrome of we can't win.
How many times is he going to say it? Obviously, this is it sounds like a written down monologue, and you could tell, by the way, folks. I don't think I've ever, for what it's worth, maybe I have the most rotten monologues in the world. You decide, but I've never written down a monologue. When I give speeches, I'm not bragging. I'm just saying I have guide points in front of me not to forget a topic or a point, but I don't have it written down. I don't read it verbatim. I've never had it. Well, when I've done television in the past, I've had teleprompters. There's no teleprompter here. I'm not bragging. I'm just saying like it is. He sounds like he wrote this down. And how many times did he write down battered race syndrome? All right, we have time for this one, I think. Yes. Okay, here's the final cut. Cut 26, please.
I don't know what marching going to do. Well, then why is everybody else marching and getting their stuff through? Because they know if they go out there and raise the temperature, somebody going to have to deal with them. But you don't think you qualify for that because they beat you down. Well, those that don't have that syndrome, meet me in Washington, August 24th. And let's do what's got to be done.
All right, I don't know what the march is on August 24th that he was plugging, but I'd like to know who's beating who is it that's beating down? Who's beating these blacks with battered race syndrome that he was referring to, that he was talking about, not me. Who's beating them down? Who's beating them down so much that they're used to being beaten down? That they now have the attitude, wow, why march? What's going to happen? We can't win and we're going to lose. We can't accomplish anything. Who's doing that to people? I don't know. I have a few theories of who the real culprits might be in this, Reverend Sharpton. But, I won't go there. All right, folks, when we come back, Benefice Zand. You're going to find this fascinating. I know I will. First time we're talking to her right here, on the Steve Malzberg Show on Newsmax TV.
The Steve Malzberg Show.
If your prostate is giving you problems and your doc says it's just part of getting older, be wary. Renowned physician and author Dr. David Brownstein thinks this is baloney. He's discovered a link between aging and prostate health and believes prostate concerns do not have to be an inevitable part of aging. That's why he created Prostate Revive.
Hi, I'm Dr. David Brownstein. I personally formulated Prostate Revive to include the most essential natural ingredients available to help promote a healthy prostate gland and optimal urinary function.
The producers of Dr. Brownstein's Prostate Revive are so thrilled with the positive feedback from satisfied customers that for a limited time, they are willing to send you your first month's supply free. Plus, call now and you'll also receive Dr. Brownstein's special report, A Doctor's Guide to a Healthy Prostate. For details on getting your free bottle, call 1-800-596-REVIVE. That's 1-800-596-REVIVE. Take control with Prostate Revive. Call now while supplies last to claim your risk-free bottle at 1-800-596-REVIVE.
Are payday loans ruining your life? If you have 2 or more payday loan cash advances, listen closely. You may be eligible for a program that payday loan companies don't want you to know about.
This program will get payday loan companies out of your bank account and put an end to the payday loan nightmare. Call for free information and find out if Payday Loan Support Center is right for you. Payday loan companies usually trap you into paying rates as high as 700%. We understand payday lenders' tactics. Don't let them take advantage of you anymore. All you need is 2 or more payday loans to qualify. We can help even if you're behind in collections or have bad credit.
Internet payday loans qualify for this program as well. So call 800-250-5084. That's 800-250-5084. The call is free and the consultation is free. Don't miss out. Call for your free information on payday loan relief. 800-250-5084. That's 800-250-5084. Again, 800-250-5084.
If you are successful at what you do, whether you're a doctor, a lawyer, a business owner, or you have a great career, you understand the concept of protecting yourself. Well, are you protecting yourself, your family, and your assets with quality term life insurance? Consider these possible rates. A man age 45 non-tobacco user could obtain $1 million of coverage for as little as $75 a month, and this rate is fixed for the next 10 years. We specialize in policies of $500,000 and above. A man age 50 non-tobacco user may be able to obtain $500,000 of coverage for as little as $115 a month. And this rate is fixed for the next 20 years. We have great rates for smokers too. Call the Term Lifeline now. 800-430-1309, 800-430-1309, 800-430-1309. Here's today's silver shortage update from Lear Capital.
Reports keep coming, the shortage is growing. Twice already this year, the U.S. Mint has run out. Last time this happened, the silver price jumped 40%. It's time to take advantage with this special offer from Lear Capital.
For a limited time, buy 20 new silver polar bear coins and get one free. The only 1.5 ounce coin on the market. It's minted with the finest silver, carries a government guarantee, and is eligible for IRAs. The silver polar bear is available exclusively from Lear Capital. But don't wait. Silver supplies are shrinking and availability is not guaranteed. This offer is limited to a minimum purchase of $5,000. Call right now. 800-634-0482. 800-634-0482. Call Lear Capital now. 800-634-0482.
Hi, I'm Joan London, and if you're worried about your parent or a loved one living alone like I was, and you want reliable senior care information, then call A Place for Mom, the nation's largest senior living referral service. You'll get free information on assisted living, Alzheimer's care, nursing homes, even important financial information.
They had obviously researched every place, not just given me names.
Really? Yeah.
They found me a place for what she could afford, and it was magnificent.
We're now very confident that she's safe, and they just helped every step of the way, and I can't thank them enough.
So if you're struggling to find reliable senior living information, call A Place for Mom. This is a free service, and you can trust them to help you.
If you're struggling to find reliable senior living information for your mom or dad, then call or go online to get the free help you need during this turbulent time. Call now, 800-908-1254, 800-908-1254.
Microphones hot. Satellite link established. Studio lights illuminated. Cameras rolling. Audio and video encoders firing ones and zeros. Internet stream is streaming. The most technology advanced radio show is on the air. Here's the captain of this enterprise, Steve Malzberg.
While we want to sustain our relationship with Egypt, our traditional cooperation cannot continue as usual when civilians are being killed in the streets and rights are being rolled back. As a result, this morning we notified the Egyptian government that we are canceling our biannual joint military exercise, which was scheduled for next month. Going forward, I've asked my national security team to assess the implications of the actions taken by the interim government and further steps that we may take as necessary with respect to the U.S.-Egyptian relationship.
All right, folks, welcome back to the Steve Malzberg Show. And as we've been talking about throughout the show, the violence in Egypt continues, and the President of the United States actually interrupting his golf game to make that announcement today. Joining us now is someone you're going to love to hear from, because there's no better authority when it comes to Iran, what's going on in Iran, and the Khomeinis who run Iran, the Ayatollahs in charge of that country. And we say hello to Banafsheh Zand. Hello, Banafsheh. How are you?
Very well, thank you. It's a pleasure to be on your show.
Well, it's my pleasure. Iranian, born in Iran, Iranian writer, film producer, human rights activist. Tell us, first of all, tell us just a little synopsis of your story and your father's story. And it's just an amazing thing to hear.
Mm-hmm. Well, my father was sort of the Nelson Mandela, Václav Havel of Iran. He was one of the leading intellectuals who, after the revolution, the Khomeiniist revolution of Iran, in Iran in '79, decided to stay in Iran because he never had any love for the Islamist powers that had been angling for control for, well, over 3 centuries in Iran. I mean, we have long memories in that part of the world. So my father, who had been a very successful journalist in the West, he had been a film theorist and film critic, as well as a political analyst and reporter, one of the first to ever interview Eisenhower and Nixon and so on, self-made, basically stayed in Iran in order to make sure that the culture of Iran is not lost through the manipulation of the Islamist powers that had hijacked the country at that point. He was arrested several times, being that intellectuals are generally a threat to that regime. And the 4th time he was kidnapped in 2001 and put in prison for what turned out to be 8 years of the 11 years, tortured. He was 72 when he was kidnapped, so by 2008, when we were able to force the Iranian regime to let him at least be under house arrest where he could get medical attention and so forth, he had 3 massive coronaries, survived it all, and because of the pressure that we had brought to bear to bring him out of Iran in 2011, the Revolutionary Guards poured into his house and they basically grabbed him by his arms and legs and threw him out of the 6th floor balcony, and then they pretended it was suicide.
Unbelievable. It is unreal. And I want to fast forward to where we are today, and with regards to Egypt and the Middle East and Africa. But let's focus on Egypt first. In this country's support for the Muslim Brotherhood, which I'm not surprised, unfortunately.
Stunning.
But so talk to me about Iran and what role, if any, is Iran? Who are they rooting for? Who, are they doing anything? Are they supporting the Morsi people? Are they hoping that the military wins out? Who are they? What are they seeing as they look from outside, and are they doing anything on the inside?
Well, Iran, I should be very specific in explaining that Iran has a huge presence all across Africa, and Egypt is certainly not an exception. There are major Shia strongholds in Egypt. The Sunnis, being the Muslim Brotherhood, factions of them, of course, are no fans of the Sunnis, of the Shias, excuse me. However, the fact is that the Muslim Brotherhood has been very much propped up and helped by the Iranian regime for over 4 decades. They have, for example, they have had representatives of the Iranian regime who are Ikhwan, who are Muslim Brotherhood, act on their behalf throughout Europe, one of them specifically being the grandson of Hassan al-Banna, Tariq Ramadan, who was working for Iran's Press TV out of their London and Rotterdam studios. And so that relationship has been, in the terrorist sense, very, very strong and has been around for decades. That said, the Iranian regime does stand very much in support of the Morsi people. As you know, the Iranian regime has very actively been arresting Christians and anybody essentially who speaks against or stands in what they think against the identity of their version of Islam. And so bottom line is that the fact that the Morsi people are now setting fire to churches, killing 10-year-old Copt girls throughout Egypt, and basically trying to turn it into a Muslim stronghold is something that the Iranian regime is 100% backing. That said, again, Sudan has been one of the most avid and steadfast allies of the Iranian regime since the very beginning of the Khomeiniist takeover. In fact, the Iranian regime was present in the Sudan when Carlos the Jekyll was arrested, and they had in fact offered Carlos the support of the Iranian regime. Hezbollah already backed him anyhow, and now we find that in fact there are fingerprints of the Iranian regime on the Benghazi attack. So all throughout various parts of Africa, now you see the involvement of the Iranian regime, specifically in northern Nigeria, in Mali, in the Horn of Africa, the Ivory Coast, Burkina Faso. They're very connected to Robert Mugabe, who is allegedly helping them in the importation of uranium to Iran. And there have been many, many cases of the various governments of, the actual government of Nigeria finding huge amounts of arms that have been shipped to various ports in Africa by the Iranian regime.
Yeah, we're talking to Benefche Zand here on the Steve Malzberg Show, Iranian writer, film producer, human rights activist. So tell me, it is amazing, and you and I, we agree on almost everything here, and you and I agree that the lack of will, as you put it, on the part of the international community and the United States specifically with regard to Iran and stopping their nuclear program and making sure they don't become a nuclear threat as well, is just dangerous and amazing. But also, tell me where you believe Israel is. I mean, is Israel going to actually allow it to happen? And is Israel capable, in your view, of taking that nuclear threat away if they decide to do it?
Look, I have forever and ever said that to attack a country that whose 88, 90 percentile citizens loathe its regime, its government, its ruling class, is a fool's errand. I think that from my impression of what I see within the various strata of the Jewish and Israeli organizations and government and so forth, there seems to be a sort of an ambivalence. Let me interject here one thing, and that is that Iran's nuclear is one thing, but what nobody is talking about, and this is where the Iranian regime has everybody checkmated, and yet again the silence on this.
Are you talking about their satellite?
No, I'm talking about 40,000 trained suicide bombers who are deployed and or deployable through various fake passports, Mexican, Venezuelan passports, Bosnian passports. You would be amazed at just how much has gone into it. And by the way, not all of them are Iranian. Most of them, in fact, are not. Some of them are Afghans. Some of them are Syrian. Some of them are Lebanese.
So any action that Israel might take or we might take in conjunction with Israel, or anything we do or they do that Iran considers provocative or an act of war, they unleash these suicide bombers all over the country, including all over the world, including in this country.
Indeed. I mean, we're talking about, one bomb and I know that I'm not for attacking Iran at all. However, the thing is that having spoken to many people who have been bouncing this idea around for many years, I have been assured by many people that if in fact this happens, and I really hope it doesn't, that it will be, it would hit areas where there's no civilians and so forth. But that said, it's still a fool's errand because the Iranian people loathe that regime, and had it not been for Obama pulling exactly what he's pulling now in Egypt, had he not pulled the same story in 2009 and said that backing the Iranian people who were calling on him for support would be essentially meddling in the Iranian affairs, as he's doing right now with Egypt. Had he stuck by the Iranian people, then, the Iranian regime would have been toppled by now.
Yeah. Okay. Well, it's a tough question, certainly, if you're Israel, because what do you do? And you know that you better than I that the regime there and the Ayatollahs believe that that we can't have mutually assured destruction as a deterrent the way we did with the Soviet Union, because the Soviet Union didn't want to get blown up, and neither did we. But you're dealing with a regime that says if we all get blown up and the world ends, then the imam will come back and we'll all go to heaven.
Yes, exactly.
So
it is by no means anything that deters them. They are happy. Their entire it is not the culture of life. In other words, it is the culture of martyrdom and culture of death, and it is a mindset that I'm sorry to say that a lot of people in the West just have not grasped fully.
Absolutely. Banafsheh Zand, it's been a pleasure. I hope you'll come back.
I would be delighted.
Okay, thank you very much.
You.
Banafsheh Zand, ladies and gentlemen, Iranian writer, film producer, human rights activist. It is, and I know, and that's the argument. And I know that our government knows that. And I know that the Obama administration has gone to Israel. And I know that they've told them, if you attack Iran and Iran starts blowing up shopping malls in our country, we're going to hold you responsible. So basically what they're saying to Israel is, you have to run the risk of your people being annihilated, because if you take action, if you're proactive in preventing the annihilation of the Jewish people, it might result in terrorist attacks in the United States, and we will blame you. I know that's what they've been telling Israel, and I know that's the pressure Israel's feeling. But if you're Israel or any country, what do you do? What do you do? You tell the United States, hey, if it's not this time around, then they'll hold it over you and unleash these thousands of suicide bombers another time. What are you going to run foreign policy and domestic policy and capitulate to Iran and their wishes and their whims because you're afraid that they got suicide bombers ready to hit your malls and, God forbid, your shopping centers and your schools? I don't know. And I know that she says 90% of the people are not with the government, and even if we believe that, does that mean you don't bomb somebody who's a direct threat to your very existence if you're Israel, and a direct threat to your very security if you're the United States, with terrorist bombers ready to be unleashed? Does that mean, well, we can't hurt the people of Iran, so we can't touch the government of Iran? We would have lost World War II. We wouldn't be here right now. Cities were bombed. I'm not saying that's a great thing, but that's war. We've changed the definition of war. Now, people are going to say, Steve says bomb the cities of Iran. I'm not saying anything. I'm saying that the most important thing a president could do, or the head of any country could do, is be responsible for the safety and security of its citizens. And if Iran has a nuclear weapon, Israel's in dire danger. And if they have Hezbollah-type bombers ready to infiltrate our country whenever they're unhappy enough, then we're in dire danger. So what do? Make sure you don't make Iran unhappy enough for the rest of their existence and our existence? That's not an answer. There's got to be another one. Got to be another answer. All right, folks. Tomorrow, John Fund fills this chair for me. I'll see you on Monday right here on the Steve Malzberg Show on Newsmax TV.